Dr. Macro Detectors is the fastest growing manufacturer in the industry, and for good reason. Many detectorists, including Mike Hare, call us the most innovative, but we are so much more than that. We listen to and care about our customers. We also offer a wide range of detectors to fit all of your needs. Come check out all of our products today at www.noctadetectors.com. Detectors for everyone, everywhere, a lifetime.
Welcome to the All Metal Mode podcast with your host, Michael Hare. Tune in every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern with co-host Gypsy Jewels, and every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern with Matt Hoffman as we talk to guests, discuss metal detectors, equipment, and everything treasure related. Feel free to join in the discussion in the chat room during the show, and please, if you like what you hear, we'd appreciate you taking a moment to hit that like button and share the link with your friends. We hope you enjoy the show. The All Metal Mode podcast starts right now.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike Hare, and you're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast. And tonight, of course, we've got Gypsy Jewels on Monday nights, and we're changing things up a little bit tonight. Though we are having Dorian Cook co-host, and we're going to start bringing him into the mix, and looking forward to that. But especially tonight, he is longtime friends with tonight's guest, Keith Wills, and so we thought we'd change it up a little bit. I will be here. I'm going to spend most of my time in the chat talking to everybody while I'm listening in on mute, and I'm looking forward to that. And I think it's just a better idea. Is I know Gypsy's been on a few hunts even recently with Keith, and Dorian and him go back to the early '70s. So boy, it ought to be a fun show. If it's anything like the pre-show, it's going to be fun because Keith is a funny guy, and he's got stories, and I know Gypsy and Dorian will drag it out of him, so I think it'll be a lot of fun. Don't forget, you can find us on Facebook at All Metal Mode, as well as All Metal Mode Podcast UK. All Metal Mode is every Monday and Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and All Metal Mode UK is every Thursday at 8 p.m. GMT or 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're interested in reading any of my reviews or metal detecting articles, you can find them at allmetalmode.com. Do not forget about DirtDigestMagazine.com, a great online free magazine. The guys are doing a really good job at that. Currently, I think, C-Scope, my C-Scope review's in there. I just got an article submitted for July. And so I'm looking forward to that. I really enjoy the magazine. I hope you do too. Take a look at it. DirtDigestMagazine.com. If you or your club, any clubs or anything related to history, metal detecting, any events, please let us know. We'd be happy to announce them for you and discuss them. Please help us spread the word. Tell your metal detecting friends. If you got groups, let them know that we do the podcast. We really appreciate the support. So tomorrow night, not only is he our guest tonight, but Dorian Cook will be talking about the psychology of metal detecting. And what a wonderful subject. I love that because I've seen it. I've absolutely seen it, and there really is something to it. And your state of mind plays a huge part on your detecting. So that's all I'm going to say for now. So Gypsy, Dorian, how you doing tonight?
Hey, doing great on this end.
Oh, good.
Doing great here too.
You too. Was that enough break to stop laughing at Keith's stories?
Yeah, I think we got our composure back.
Good deal. Something I do want to say real quick before we get into the show. You know, a lot of people out there think their detector breaks and it's done. You know, Keith Wills, I believe, is the only guy in the country that works on detectors. I know he's the only one I've heard of that's trusted. I can tell you that. BrokenDetector.com, I do believe, or BrokenDetectors.com. I'll have to look that up. We'll get a link in the chat going. But if your detector breaks or if it's running funny, out of warranty or something, Keith is affordable. Look him up. Dorian, are you building a boat, or you got a boat ready to go?
Just about. We some of the work refurbishing an older aluminum boat. We're going to do some high dollar Indian artifact hunting along the Ohio River shores.
Nice.
Wow.
That'd be really cool. You know, there's so much history going on in that river. There's still got to be stuff forever to be found.
Forever's right, Mike. And the nice thing about it, you have two sources of renewal. You have with the rainy years we've been having, the up and down levels of the river. Every time it goes up and comes down, it leaves new erosion channels in the banks everywhere. And in those erosion channels, you find artifacts. And they've been coming out of there for 200 years, and it looks like there's no end in sight.
Yeah. As I was reading Alan Eckert's Dark and Bloody River, it just makes the Ohio River sound like a highway system. It was so busy. I mean, it's just amazing to me to think about how many people travel down the Ohio River and how many boating accidents and attacks and everything else. There's got to be just full of relics, absolutely full. Hey, Dorian, it's a little bit distance from you, but remind me the next time we talk off air. I found something really interesting on the Ohio side of the Ohio River off a very early map. We'll discuss it later. Heck, you probably already know about it, but I would like to talk about it to you.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and bring Keith on. Keith, how are you doing tonight?
I'm sitting here learning.
Learning? You're the teacher.
Yeah. Oh. I don't know about that, but I've been accused of a lot of things, but I don't know about that.
That's funny. Okay, guys, I'm gonna put it on mute, and I'm gonna tune in and listen and enjoy myself in chat. So you guys got this?
Yeah. And, you know, we'll ask, Gypsy and I are going to ask everybody to cut us just a little slack because we've never worked together. And this is a first time experience for me. I've never been a co-host. So we'll ask the audience to be merciful to us there. And Gypsy, you are the veteran co-host here. So, you know, go ahead and take the lead and you know, let's get Keith going there, but just remember, if we get him going, we got to be able to turn him off.
Good luck. My wife claims that I can talk to a fence post for 45 minutes before I find out it won't talk back to me.
Hey, Keith.
That.
Keith, excuse me.
Go ahead.
My wife has her version of that is she tells people he's got help, I'm talking, and I can't shut up syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that same syndrome for too many years.
Oh, man.
Well, it's just and you know I'm right. It's just I love talking about the hobby. And I've never been a guy that likes to keep secrets. I like to teach and tell, and if I know something, I like to share it. You know, I've learned from some of the best. And when I was a kid, matter of fact, I showed up at your shop, Dorian, when I was younger.
Yeah,
really what you'd call a kid with my dad. But we did that together. We double teamed it all the time. And Dad would pull up every Saturday morning with his car, and I'd throw my stuff in the back, and we'd head down the road. I said, where we're going? He said, I don't know. I thought we'd go this way. I said, okay. And we just drive, and every ball field, every football stadium, every school, every meeting place out in the country, churches, everywhere. We hit them. And this was long before anybody else even kind of knew what metal detectors were. So now the clubs in East Texas, if one of the guys goes somewhere and he can't find nothing at church or nothing at this meeting hall, he says, well, Silver Wheels gang got it. That's talking about us, Keith Wills and Bob Wills. They called us the Silver Wheels gang in the clubs because we kept coming in with about 40 silver every month minimum each. And so, I remember one time we both come in with over 70 silver coins that we'd found in the 30 days since the last club meeting, and everybody was just standing there with their mouth open. Nobody said anything. But it's just that when we hunted, we covered the ground good. We were methodical and, really used it. And like Dorian's probably going to tell you tomorrow night, there's a mental thing that you can do. And I think that's really where you can contribute a lot of my luck as far as hunting and stuff, because I focus into it. And but I also use that time when I slam those headphones on to have peace and me and God talk some, So he's probably letting me find something so I won't feel so bad afterwards. But anyway, I wish he'd help dig the holes. That's what I wish he could do. But that's okay.
That would be the best part, if he'd dig the holes for you.
You don't ask for too much, do you? Hey, Keith, what was your best day on silver? What was the most pieces of silver you ever found in one day?
Oh, well, it's kind of hard because, see, I found this jar with 311 barber halves in it. So I would probably say that was good.
Now, we're talking about one dig at a time.
Oh, yeah. Well, that day there, it was a payoff. And I've found several other caches along the way, about 9 or 10 caches so far. And I think probably my first gold coin, it was a $10 1910 Indian head gold piece. And I was at a carnival ground, old antique carnival ground in Texarkana. Dad and I were. And when you dig down, the midways were always covered in sawdust. And up at front, they had a cage with a big bear in it and all this kind of stuff. And it was a show-off, and they had on both sides of the midway, it would have all the games and stuff that you play, and then the big tent at the end. And in that sawdust, they would be so thick that when they dropped the coin, it just disappeared. And so I was out there, and we were hunting, and when I'd done some research, and I found out where the train pulled off the railroad spur that still exists and what field they were set up in. And so we had it to ourselves. I mean, nobody touched it. And I think seemed like Dad got 80-something silver that day out of that midway, and I got, I don't know, somewhere in that neighborhood, probably 75. He was gloating until I dug the $10 gold piece. And then he didn't talk to me all the way home. But it was in there, and somebody lost it in the circus. It was worn a little bit, about half worn, but it was still my first gold coin. And since then, I've dug 8 more. And every one of them have been one here, one there. My best luck on gold coins is plantation sites. You get out there, and I mean, where he dug the field, whatever, he loses it out of his pocket or out of his bib overalls while he's out there tractoring the field and or plowing the field back in those days. And I would find pocket watches, gold watches, different things. But a lot of the time I went straight for the biggest tree on the place, or where I thought the biggest tree was. Because when you do research on plantation sites, you find out that they stayed very little in the house. That was a place to sleep. There was no electricity, and there was nothing to do in the house. You got outside, and you got under the big shade tree. Even the slaves rested under the tree, and the old man worked on his plow under the tree. So all the activity went on under the tree. And I've been able to dig several slave tags. I know Dorian put it on his site. the other day that one of the places I saw had slave tag information. It's a very interesting site. You need to go to the Dorian site for sure because there's always something going on. But anyway, it's just I accumulate a lot of things and a lot of knowledge in this over the years, and it's just been fun. And I love to share it with anybody.
Keith, I just wanted to step in real quick and wow, slave tags. That's something on my list. I know it's a ugly part of our history, but it is part of our history, and that is. I'm not one of those people that really makes a bucket list of finds, but I'll tell you that's one that I would cherish and has always been something I've wanted to find. But that you mentioned Dorian's group. Go ahead and give it out, Dorian. Let people know. And I agree.
It's called WeDigTheCivilWar.com, or not .com, excuse me. We Dig the Civil War headquarters. I'll get it right in a minute. And it's basically, it's not your regular relic hunting site. It's for people that have a real passion about not only the relics, but the history of the Civil War. So we share history, Civil War history stories, and whenever we can connect them to artifacts found, you bet we do. But it's a site for participators. It's not a place where you just go and kind of lurk in the background. We ask our people to participate, and the group that we've got that are participators are doing an awesome job, and I'm learning from every one of them. Even the younger guys have things to contribute and are wowing us with relic finds that just absolutely blow your mind. So if you're that kind of a person and you can get passionate about the Civil War and about both the history and the relics, whether you are an accomplished relic hunter or not, we'd love to have you. We got 116 members right now, and we're going to cap it at 200. So anyway, we do have some openings at the present time. And like I said, if you're a participator, if you're passionate about it, please, you'll find a home with us there. Okay. Hello.
It's good to speak.
Yeah. Okay.
Come on, Gypsy. You left him hanging, Gypsy. Come on.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I've been to the site, and I'm privileged to be a part of the site. To be honest with you, Dorian dubbed me, and so I'm part of the gang, and I try to get over there as much as I can. But I got so many irons in the fire; it's very hard for me to get there sometimes. But I love reading everything they put up, and try to at least let them know that I'm there and reading it. So that's the point. I mean, if nobody's reading it, you get to where you don't want to put anything up anymore. So there's readers, and it's increasing daily, but I'm really enjoying the story. Do what?
Keith, can I ask you something? If I back up just a minute here, you'd mentioned you'd found 7 or 8 caches.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to tell us what was in all the caches, but I'm very curious, how many of those caches were found by chance versus stories you were working?
I would say at least half.
Okay.
I would say 4 or 5 was by stories I was working, but the others were just by just happenstance. I'm hunting an old site that had a house on it or something like that and just trip over it and just run across the house and got out of the truck and started hunting. And, one of the best sites I found was way back up in the woods, and the only thing left was the well. So I got out and I started hunting around there, and I found a barber half. And I said, well, I'll come back to this place. So next time I came back, I brought a friend with me. And we went out and we hunted ourselves to death, and we didn't find anything but scrap iron. I said, well, this didn't turn out so well. So we're going back to the truck, and I'm talking about 3 steps from the truck. I get all these signals in one spot. It's just a spot maybe, I don't know, size of a 18-inch tire there, and it's just signals everywhere. And one big signal in the middle of it. So I dig the big signal, and what I get is a fruit jar lid with a busted glass still in the lip of it. And I'm going, well, there's a busted fruit jar here somewhere. And So I threw it away and out of the side, and I went over it again. It was just targets all over. Well, that was 913, I think it was, and we finally took 4 trips to clean it. 913 Indian head pennies.
Oh, wow.
So it took us several trips to get it clean, but it was that blow sand type stuff. And I mean, we were fighting the quail to get in there. They were in there fluffing their feathers, and I was in there trying to get the coins out. So one of us going to win. But still, it was pretty neat. And I shared it with the guy. I split it with him and stuff, and he said, "I'll never have a better day in my life." And I thought that was pretty good. I got him in the hunt like 4 years before. So anyway.
Well, that's really interesting. Keith, I don't think you ever heard the story of my first cash find.
No, I haven't.
I was living in East Dallas and lived in a poor people's little 2-bedroom clapboard house. Was just starting my landscape business back in 1972. And, of course, everybody hunts their yard first when they get their first metal detector. And so I hunted my yard, and I found 38 coins, and I thought that was really something, and I was hooked. So I branched out and started hunting the parks and school grounds, I'm sure just like you did. And there was a 1-story brick elementary school, probably built in the late 40s, early 50s in my neighborhood. So I go out there, and I'm doing pretty good out in the school grounds and finding buffalo nickels and things like that, and, some silver coins occasionally. But I noticed there was a hedge about chest high underneath the windows on one wing, and there was a space behind the hedge. And I thought, I bet kids threw coins out the windows. I'm going to get behind that hedge and see if I can find a few coins there. So I crawled back behind the hedge, and I guess I went about 6 or 8 feet with my detector, and I noticed a piece of looked like a sandwich bag sticking out of the ground. That was back in the days before Ziplocs. So I got over that, and boy, my detector screamed at me, and the soil behind that hedge was just practically dust. You know how Texas is in the summer, of course, and it was hot and dry. And so I just actually took my hands, and I started pulling the dust away, and then from this sandwich bag, and in that sandwich bag were 300 mercury dimes.
Oh.
So that was for a hunt. What's that?
I said some kid was getting ready to plant that for a hunt.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that was quite a surprise. I thought I went home that day thinking it's not going to be long and I'm going to be rich.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't take too long to get that out of my head, but.
Yeah, I like that. I had a personal friend one time, and he was pretty old, and every time it rained, he had a trash sack. So he cut a hole for his head, and he just slipped the thing on. But I have a picture of him where the Daily News in Longview took a picture of him hunting some salt where they were removing a bunch of homes on a block there. There were older 30 homes, and we were digging silver and stuff like that. Well, he went one time without me, and they got a picture of him in his trash bag. I thought that was always funny. He passed away now, but he was a real good hunter. But anyway, you run across that stuff every once in a while, but he got serious. And there, after he retired, he said, well, I'm doing nothing but treasure hunting. I'll make a good living off of it. I said, well, I don't know about that, BJ. And he goes, well, I can do it. I find stuff. I said, yeah, but you're going to be out there 24/7 to do anything to pay a bill. And so he didn't believe me, but it didn't take about 4 weeks, and he was a believer then. He said, well, why didn't you tell me a dictator? I said, I tried to tell you.
Yeah.
So, so I looked at him. I said, so this means my birthday party next year is off? He said, you sure bet. I'm not giving you no birthday party.
Well, Keith, you remind me of a real good tip we could share with everybody about professional treasure hunting, because there's a lot of metal detector people, those thoughts go through your mind. And I had the chance to run with some of the top treasure hunters professionally in the country when I worked for Charles Garrett. And one of the things they told me was, don't professionally treasure hunt unless you can support yourself independently without having to work at any other job for 2 years. So don't start as a professional until you can pay your bills for 2 years if you don't find anything.
Yeah.
And that's good advice.
Somewhere around here, I got pictures of you working for Garrett. Didn't you take a couple of movie stars out over the years?
Well, John Quaid was the only movie star that I remember. You know, he was the ugly guy that played the biker gang leader in that movie Every Which Way But Loose, the Clint Eastwood movie. Yeah. He was Clint Eastwood's buddy, and he looked scary. He was so ugly and mean looking, but he was one of the most gentle people you ever met. I mean, he was a sweetheart as far as personality. But we met some interesting people there. About a large percentage of the great and the wannabe great came through those Garrett doors when I was there, and that's where I met Jesse James III. You know, Jesse James's grandson, and a lot of adventures came out of that meeting. I'll tell you. But anyway, Keith, one of the things that I wanted you to cover a little bit. Tell us about how everything went at the Handicapped Kids Camp hunt this year.
Everything went great, as they do every year. Here's something that was in the back when I and the activity director there put this together 33 years ago.
Wow.
He asked me, he was a blind. He was totally blind. He was raised in a camp, and he was now the director of activities, and he couldn't see. And anyway, I got him one of those Garrett GTI 300s that was a talker, and it'd talk to him, so it'd tell him what the signal was when he hit it and stuff like that, besides the tones, because he couldn't read a meter. Well, anyway, I invited him down one time. Let's not get on that because I'm going to talk about the kids camp. But I have to shift gears every once in a while. Anyway, we started that 33 years ago, and what we didn't realize was that the camp counselors are foreign exchange students. They come from different countries, Australia, Belgium, wherever. Every year, there's at least two different countries there working with the kids, and evidently it's something that's a requirement. So much physical work in the air, outside, with if you're doing something trying to get through college on some degree. So they don't have trouble getting those volunteers for the camp. Well, what I do, and what we decided to do, me and Nolan Underwood that started this mess, we decided those counselors were going to have to use that detector too. We'd send them out, the 3 kids and the counselor and one of our guys from Texas here, and they would go out there and show everybody how to turn the detector on and use it, how to swing it, and we'd teach kids that were blind how to use it, how to find their target. We'd teach kids that were deaf with a flashing light on the machine how to use it, and then we taught wheelchair kids, which is probably the biggest hardship in trying to teach handicap, is how to metal detect where you don't pick up the wheelchair and then mark the spot and go over there, roll up to it, and dig it. So anyway, these foreign exchange students that were there that was helping us in each group, we would make them dig too. Just like the kids. Get 2 coins, pass it to your buddy in the group like that, and go around, just keep going until your time runs out, and they call you back in. You get to keep all the foreign coins that you find. Well, what happened that we didn't know through the back door of this thing, these foreign counselors went back to their country, told them what we were doing. They applied it to their children camps, and now what we started here in Texas at Kerrville has gone international.
Wonderful. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. It didn't even dawn on me until the camp director said something to me about it. And he said, there's several other countries doing this now. And upon checking, I found out there's in South America and over in Australia, they do it through the Camp Kids and handicap and stuff. It's just a known activity now. It's unbelievable. It's just a blessing is what it is.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. Keith, I admire you so much and what you've done over the years with that. And I've heard about it for years. I think you told me a long time ago when I first met you about that camp. And I was so honored and privileged to get to go this year, my first year ever. And I definitely want to go back in years to come. And it was interesting that you said that about, other countries and that's happening all over now. On my way back, when I was driving back from after you and I went hunting in the rivers the next day and stuff, I was driving back and a friend of mine called me and I told her about what we just finished doing, and she was telling me about another camp not far from Kerrville that a friend of hers runs in the summer, and I talked to her about maybe me and maybe we can get some friends from the Austin Club over here to help with that as well. It may not happen this year because, it's getting real hot and it's probably not the best time of year now for some of those kiddos, but hopefully by next year we can get something going at another camp not all that far from Kerrville. So I'm excited about that.
Sure, that sounds great. That really sounds great.
I really enjoyed getting to work with the kiddos this year. Unfortunately, there was a big storm rolled in. We had one more last hunt to do that day with another group of kids, and a big storm rolled in, and we got it started hailing there at the end, didn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of
yeah.
There for a second. But I had the privilege of doing that this year, and we plant foreign coins out there, and the kids, I tell you, that first girl that I helped with the wheelchair, she wanted to keep going. She did not want to, she was the last one to come in from that first group.
Isn't that amazing?
Absolutely. And it brings to mind what I've seen over the years in regards of the power of metal detecting and its effects on people's health. One day when I was working for Charles Garrett, my secretary came into the office and she was white as a sheet, and she said, there's a man out here in the lobby. You need to come talk to him. And he's in real bad shape. And I've never seen anybody like him. I said, well, okay, Debbie. I said, I'll take care of it. I couldn't imagine what she was really talking about. So I go out, and here's this big, tall fellow that's maybe 6'3", 6'4", even, fairly thin, and he's wearing a short-sleeved shirt and slacks, wearing glasses, and all over his face and arms are these skin cancers so close they're touching each. He looks like a monster, and he's got this big cutout in one side of his neck. It looks like a cannonball took away part of his neck. It looks like a cannonball would fit right in that. It's like a half circle cut out of his neck where they'd done surgery on him. And what skin showed between these crusty cancers was just gray. It looked like it was dead. And I'd never seen anybody like this. And so the man told me, he said, I don't have very long to live. And he said, the doctor told me as long as I'm not bedridden to get out and do something that I would like to do. And he said, I've always wondered about metal detecting. And I thought, what, how do I here's a man who's at death's door. How do I treat him? What do I do? And it was like a voice said inside of me, treat him like everybody else. Because I was responsible for lobby sales, what they called lobby sales. When people came in to the Garrett factory at that time, I had to come out and show them our detectors and make a sale if they wanted to buy directly from the factory. So I took him into our little museum, and I showed him all of my coins and relics that I had displayed there and other people's. And he started getting, he went from looking like the most depressed individual on earth. He started actually smiling, and started getting excited and started asking intelligent questions. And I ended up spending 2 hours with him. And he bought our most expensive detector. And so as he walked out the door, he was a much happier man than when he walked in. But I thought, well, I'll never see that man again alive, but at least maybe I've given him a little comfort in his last days. Well, about 3 months later, he walks in the door again. And his attitude's totally different. He's really upbeat. He still looks as bad as he did, but his attitude is really positive. And he shows me a whole double handful of coins, silver coins and rings and things that he's found. And he told me, he says, I'm hunting 10 hours a day. He says, when I get tired, I sit down and rest. And then I'm back up at it again. He says, I'm having a ball. And I thought, that's amazing. This is 3 months later after the initial. Well, to make a long story short, the next time he came in, it was a year. And he had a cigar box full up to the top of silver coins and rings, gold rings, silver rings that he wanted to show me. And he wanted to update his metal detector and get the latest model. And I thought, this is incredible. This man's alive a year later and enjoying life. Well, I didn't see him all that next year. And I thought, well, he's probably died by now. But, at least it's some small comfort to me to know that I was able to add something to the quality of the last part of his life.
Absolutely.
And here we are 2 years from the initial day he walks in, and he comes in again. And he says, I can't carry in what I want to show you. You're going to have to come out to the car. And I said, I haven't seen you for a year. I thought you'd gone and died on me. And he says, oh, no. He says, I had a little heart attack, but I'm all right now. And I thought, yeah, I know. It was incredible. And I go out there, and the whole truck is full of finds that would make anybody green with envy. I mean, it's just awesome what the man's done. Of course, hunting 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, you're going to get really good with your detector. And he had. Well, last part of the story is I saw him a year from that date. He was alive 3 years after the first day that he walked in, and nobody will ever tell me that it wasn't because he got involved in metal detecting.
Yep.
That's incredible. I mean, it's amazing what metal detecting can do for one's health and one's just well-being and their attitude. And to see, like on these kids' faces, the smiles and the excitement when they dig up, that first coin and it's just there's nothing that can replace that. Man, that's amazing story, Dorian. That is just amazing.
Well,
the impact that you were able to make on his life and in Garrett as well.
Yeah, and Gypsy, let's just tell anybody who's listening who's struggling with a serious disease or the doctors have told they're terminal or whatever, it ain't over till it's over. You get your detector and get out there, and you do like that man. You get tired, you rest, and then get back at it, and just keep going. And just fix it in your mind. They'll get my detector when they pry it from my cold, dead hands.
Right.
When my father had his first heart attack, he went in and they put a stent in him in 3 places. He was a 4-stent carrier before he died. He wasn't going to have open heart. But anyway, he went back in to re-see his doctor after that, after 30 days or so. And his doctor says, "How are you in such good shape, man? Your heart's doing well, and you just really lost a little weight and stuff like that. And well, how do you do all that?" And he said, "Well, what I do all day long is metal detect. I go out there, I walk 10 miles a day, swinging the detector with my arm back and forth." He said, "That's a perfect workout for a heart patient." That's when he flipped my card out to him and said, "Well, my son sells them." But he has got a point. You're working your heart muscles by swinging your arm, and you're getting the walking in that every one of them tells you you need to do. And so, it's got a point there. So, but I don't remember getting any business off of it. So anyway, he probably didn't tell nobody.
Oh, wow.
Well, Keith, what you're doing, there's just a real short scripture that comes to mind. It says, "The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but who can bear a wounded spirit?" If you can get kids or adults up and fighting, and get them to where they're not depressed, where they're excited, and life is interesting again and everything, man, that is a tonic or a medicine of such power.
Once I went up there and just not thinking, I'd bring a bunch of my finds that I found with a detector, and they think, "Well, do we win this?" But no. And I brought some of my business cards, and some of them took them home. I had to refill the holder about 3 times, 2 days. And anyway, I got this letter from a lady, and she said, "Well, you took my wheelchair daughter that's been in wheelchair for life, and you got her out from behind the computer and TV, and I swear to you, we bought, first thing when she got home, she had to have a metal detector, so we bought her one." And she's done, there's not a person on my block here that hasn't had their yard hunted by her, because nobody will turn her down in that wheelchair. And she's out there dug every yard, and we have to take her to the park 3 times a week. We won't hear the end of it. She said, "I just want to say God bless you for getting her out behind all that screens and getting outdoors. It was something that we couldn't do, and you did it with a metal detector." And I said, "Well, there's a group of us, so they really all get credit because we work together with them. But it's something, when Charles Garrett told me, he said, 'Well, I'll just donate a dozen detectors to the camp.' That's their detectors." So I took all dozen of them, and I all but one, and I offset the frequency inside on the board, so the 2 detectors close together wouldn't talk to each other. And I did that, and I wrote on the back of it what value it was. I offset it on frequency, so the factory would know every time I send one in to be repaired that's not working or something. Well, they would see that I have a modification in there, wouldn't change it or take it out. But it's really worked well, and we've had these detectors for a while now, and they're all working great. And every year, Garrett supplies new batteries for every one of them, and they send a bunch of little things for the kids, like little money pouches and stuff like that, rain jackets and stuff like that. The raincoats and stuff that the kids all get a kick out of. And then we usually have a bunch of toy cars there. It's donated to us. They're new. People go buy them, and we have that. Each kid gets one gift besides the Garrett gifts. And then they get to keep all their coins. But I was going to tell you about this other little lady, and she was in a wheelchair too, but she had no legs. And it was obviously an accident somewhere in her life, and she lost her legs. So anyway, I come up to her, and her counselor standing there talking to her, and she's got this double handful of coins, 2 handfuls, and I was bringing her a Ziploc bag to put them in so she wouldn't lose them. She was already dropping them between, in the seat and stuff like that, so I was trying to help her. I said, "What are you going to do with all those coins? Now leave it to a child." She looked at me, and she said, without hesitation, she said, "I'm going to give them to my mama to help pay my medical bill."
Wow.
That pulls
If
at your
that don't blow you off a pedestal, I guarantee you, out of a child's mouth. I mean, it's just, you know, you're doing the right thing when something like that happens.
Oh, yeah.
So I've had letters, I've had phone calls from different parents, you know, over the years, and they thanked me for doing it and stuff like that. And I said, well, there's a lot of us invested in it, but I was the one that bought the business card. So I guess that's why I got it's tapered off since I quit bringing business cards up there. Trying to sell them detectors, but I mean, it's just off thought, and I just bought them and didn't put them out and didn't even think about it. But it just kind of gave me a little taste of the response that they were getting when the children went home, you know. The neat thing about that camp is that's the Texas Lions camp, handicapped children in Kerrville. And the Texas Lions across the state there's not a penny spent by the parents for this. That camp is free. Everything they eat is free. Everything they receive up there is free. And then the travel to and from is done by a lion, which takes up the challenge of making sure that kid gets there and they are picked up and taken back home. And so they door to door their house with each child and help them with it. So it's a completely unbelievable situation up there. If you get in the depths of the politics and stuff like that, there's a lot of true people really behind it. And that's what makes it so gracious. As a matter of fact, I talked to the director, and he said, sorry, I got to go on the phone here. I got another possible investor. You know? They are always trying to build new things, and you know, Gypsy, you saw the lunchroom. That was not always the lunchroom. It's just enormous. It's about the best and most modern you could get. And they cook all these meals for the kids. I told Gypsy, I said, it may be corn dog day. I don't know.
We had taco salad or something of that nature.
Yeah.
I think that.
They have a salad bar. They have a stage. They usually have something going on the stage when everybody's in there eating and stuff like that. It's really informative. It's a beautiful place. It really is. And like Gypsy, I bet you she will come back, because once you go and deal with the kids, you want to come back. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, there's you got to, and I'm not that far from Kerrville. I think it's about a 2.5-hour drive. So for me, it's definitely worth the drive. It was definitely worth going, and it you know, and I got a chance to see you again, Keith. For those of you that maybe weren't tuned in the night we first night we had Keith on, and I don't know about you, Dorian. I know you know that I know Keith, but Keith, 21 years ago, sold me my first Garrett metal detector. I had very first started with a Radio Shack, and then soon kind of started doing research, and my parents said, hey, Keith, or there's this guy that over here in Gilmer, Texas, right up the road from us, that sells metal detectors. You should go in there and check out his store. So I went in there and met Keith 21 years ago and bought my first Garrett metal detector, and then that's all she wrote. I kept coming back and I would go in there and listen to his stories. I think I bought several metal detectors from him, and even I would just be amazed. I'd love to go in there and look at his finds and pick his brain, and he would show me the latest equipment. And Keith is just a wealth of information, and there's so many stories I know that you told me even back then that just stuck with me for so many years. Like I remember your big old meteorite you had propping up your door for years, and I remember you telling me some story about because I used to hunt the beach a lot, and you said, yeah, if you ever dig something that looks like a rusty old spike, you know, don't throw it back, because, you know, part of it could be brass or something on the outside, but could be gold on the inside. There was just so many stories, and I just love listening to all of Keith's stories. So I had the privilege of getting to metal detect with Keith after we did the Lions Camp hunt, and Keith was telling us about a place on the river, it's a Guadalupe River that flows through there, and it's a very popular swimming river where people float on certain parts and swim on certain parts of the river. So Keith was telling me about this swimming hole that he had found years ago, and so the next day we had decided we were going to go find this swimming hole that he had a good look at. And before then, though, we hit, what was that place we hit, Keith?
That was the Veterans Help Center or something like that. I don't remember what exactly. It was an old school gym that they converted. School was gone, and we got permission to hunt the ground.
Yeah, so they'd gotten permission, and so my friend Misty, her brother works at the Lions Camp, and she has a Garrett 18 Max, and she just got it, and she's wanting to learn how to use it. And so she wanted to get together with us and go hunting. So she had never found even a coin with her. She'd only tried her machine out once before since she's bought it. And so we went to this veterans place and kind of played in the yard, and we found some bullet casings, and what did I get? A bullet and some pennies. And then Keith turns on his machine, and he walks over there to this one little area, and he pops an Indian head penny. He has out of the ground just like that.
Gypsy, that's the maddening thing about hunting with Keith. I love him to death, but I hate to hunt with him because I already know I can tell you the score before we ever even start. At the end of the day, I mean, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be Keith 575 and Dorian 32. You know.
Hey guys, let me jump in here real quick. I want to say why we're live on air. Gypsy, I think the world of you. You know I do, and I just think you're a great person, a lot of passion for the hobby, but I do not love you. I apologize for that text. That was meant for Steph. Yeah, that's awkward. I was just, I had text message open. I'd messaged her that we were having some feedback. Well, I'm sitting here tuning in, and Steph's, I thought, well, I'll tell Steph I love her, send her a text, and I went to go tell Gypsy we sounded a little bit better, and I realized I just texted Gypsy that I love her. So I'd like to make it real clear that I think the world of you, but I don't love you, just so you know.
Come on, you know you love me a little.
Oh, I do. You're great, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to say I love you, baby, which is the text I sent you. It's a little weird, but guys,
I think she's used to it now because every time I see her, there's a block long of guys following her around. She's already got a wolf up in Colorado she can't shake. Yeah.
You guys are doing really good, and audio's clearing up. It seems to be. We were having some. That's why I texted Gypsy. I let her know. I didn't know if she could hear it on her end, but great job. Keep it up.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, Gypsy, I don't know. You never heard how Keith and I met. It was under very stressful circumstances. Would you like to hear that?
I would love to hear that. That sounds amazing. I'd love to hear it.
I was living in East Texas about 30 miles out of Gilmer, where you do, and out in the woods, kind of 6 miles out of a little town called Winsboro. And
I know where that is.
Okay, all right. Well, I was living out there on about 6 miles out, and I had two houses on my property. One of them was in kind of a gutted condition, and I rehabbed the second floor of it and turned it into a metal detector shop. So this particular week, I had two people had stopped, and they had bought metal detectors at Kellyco at a discount, and they wanted me to show them how to use them free.
Right.
Well, I was like, it's like pulling the hammer back on a gun. It's ready to fire. I told my wife, I said, if I get one more person that ask me to show them how to use or, operate their Calico detector, I'm going to scream. And Keith was that one more person. He walked in. I believe Keith wasn't in a Technetics that you had, if I remember right.
That Technetics Mark 1. Yeah.
Yeah. And poor Keith, I had never been angry or rude to a customer, but he pulled the trigger on that gun and boom. I let him have a piece of my mind. I was fed up with people buying from Calico, and I was having to do Calico's sales work for him, so to speak. Yeah. And that was how our relationship began. Thankfully, we got past that.
I don't want to say I was looking for the door, but I was looking for the door. Get out of there.
Like, who's this rude man? Jeez.
It's all right. I've got 3 ex-wives and all live in Texas, so that type of stuff just bounce off my chest like Superman.
Hey, Keith, you know what I finally did as a solution to that problem? I said, sure, I'll be glad to show you how to use your detector. I charge $100 an hour with a 2-hour minimum. And, it seems like everybody lost interest in having me show them how to use their detector when I told them that.
Dorian,
I tell you, Dorian, it's inflation. It's $150 an hour now.
Oh, is it?
2-hour minimum.
Gotcha.
I think anyone that's ever sold metal detectors, because years ago, I know that, Keith, poor guy, I'm sure the same's happened to him over the years. Everybody coming to him, wanting him to show. Like me, I had my Radio Shack, but that's why not long after that, I went ahead and just bought my first Garrett from Keith. But I can, when I owned my metal detecting store, I had the same thing happen to me all the time. People go, they come into my store and look at everything and ooh and ah, and then the next thing you know, they bring in a detector that they bought from Calico and go, how do you work this thing?
Yeah. Well, Gypsy, and there was even more to the story. When I was Garrett's marketing director, I had 400 dealers, and every single one of them metal detected. I had the best dealer program in the whole United States. And Stu Auerbach at Calico came in and started buying detectors from Garrett 1,000 at a time and got bigger discounts. And he was advertising metal detectors cheaper to retail customers than the dealers could buy them from Garrett. And it ruined a whole lot of good dealers across the United States. And
you have to tell her who Stu Auerbach is. She's not as old as we are.
Oh. Well, he the late Stu Auerbach, he was the founder of Calico, and he just recently died. But he was the king of the discounters. He was the one that got the big discount flood going, and he put probably 300 of my 400 dealers out of business, and who knows how many of other companies' dealers out of business because they could not buy in quantities big enough to get the same discount.
Yeah.
So they couldn't compete with him. They just couldn't. So, it's a sad thing because we put so many people out there with detectors who didn't know how to use them. And frankly, for the last 15, 20 years, I've been buying the detectors from those people who went out, tried using them an hour or two, got frustrated, put the detector in the closet, and I've been buying them for, like half price, and they're new. They're brand new. So
they kept them in their closet and collected dust and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the thing that we always said, our philosophy at Garrett was you have to sell the hobby as well as the detector. You have to give people reasonable goals, and tell them you're not going to go out the first day and find your first gold coin unless you win. You're also going to win the lottery that day.
Right. Right.
reasonable goals. Anyway, Keith, excuse me, I don't mean to take up your time. You jump back in here.
All right. Let's tell another treasure story.
Good.
I got one that this one was just a little ways over here. It's in Laneville, Texas, outside of Henderson, Texas. And anyway, I'm over there, and I brought my truck to my prospecting buddy that lived over in there, and his whole family lives over there. So it's like a little community type area. But anyway, he was going to change my cracked manifold on my truck for me, and he had set me up to metal detect with his dad. Well, his dad's 82 years old, and I said, well, it's whatever you want to do. But 9 o'clock in the morning, it's 106 in the shade, where you can't hardly breathe. So we go over, and first we start off, it's about 8 o'clock when we started off. He took me to a stage stop that's still standing. And the neat part about it was that one side, it kind of looked like a barn in a way. It's what the guy was using it for anyway. Parked his tractor in the middle. But on one side, the left-hand side, was the bunk area where everybody slept. And the right-hand side was the big dining area. And he had took all the brick fireplace down where they cooked on and stuff like that years before. But anyway, the neat part was stepping out and looking at the logs on this log cabin place. And there's so many people that was on that stagecoach signed it. And you wouldn't believe how many X's were on there that people couldn't spell their name on that thing. People had signed that thing getting off the coach and going in there to eat, and if they're staying the night or staying over, they had a bunk place to sleep. But that was a stagecoach stop. Anyway, we went down what they called the Wire Road. This road was the first telegraph wire in East Texas. And there was a magnolia tree there that would take at least 8 people walking hand to hand all the way around it to get around that magnolia tree.
Wow.
The roots coming up out of the ground were bigger than most trees you got growing in your yard. And it was just unbelievable. And the first thing that caught my eye was all the cans. It was like a dump area for cans. And I said, what the world? Picked them up, and they were all lead-seam cans, and most of them had a lead plug in the end. Just like the old peach cans that you watch the Western guys dig the plug out of to get peaches out of. So I said, well, it's definitely old, and something was here. And I'm thinking it more was like a stop somewhere on that wire road, going up and down that road. So we get out and hunt it, and they told me after 2.5 years, Randy and his dad there and AD, his uncle, had been hunting that place, and it was so trashy that all they ever found was one Indian head penny in 2.5 years. And they said that we gave up on it like that, So anyway, here comes Keith, and I'm out there with my compass, and everything's just going off. It just sounds like machine gun fire. And I had a new one from another manufacturer sitting in the back end. They wanted me to try out on some site. So I put it all together and stuck it together, and it was much lighter than my machine. And I said, let's try this. So they go over the same spot, and it's a lot quieter. I said, well, I'm liking this already. If it'll detect, it'll be great. So anyway, at that point, you start thinking about a glass iced tea, your recliner, TV remote. It's so much better than doing this kind of temperature out here, sweating like a dog, and everything's soaking wet from you. But I finally decided I do this quite often, and I don't know, it's just something I've always done since I treasure hunt. I'll squat down and look at the lay of the land, and something different there came to my mind when I looked at it. It looked like similar to part of a pond bank up there. When I got closer to it, I saw it was where a root bundle of a tree, when the tree fell over, was pushed up there. And of course, I hunted the root bundle. And everywhere else, I've found nothing at all. But there, when I started, I was getting 6-inch brass shoe buckles, and the brass toe of a boot and stuff like that. The interesting stuff, you love to dig. It's got something about it that you're in heaven when you're digging that stuff, and especially deep, where you got to go slow and hunt close. Well, I get up to this pine, and this pine's probably about as big around as your thigh, and pine tree, and I learned years ago, and this is a little trick that I do that people keep telling me, well, there's no bullets left out there in this old Civil War spot. I go out there and I dig double hands full, because they come up to a tree, and if you know your signal coming off the bottom of a coil, it comes off in a cone shape. So it's going away from the tree when you come up perpendicular to the vertical tree. So I swing and tilt my coil up as I get to the tree. Now the signal's going at the bottom of the tree. That tree wasn't there during Civil War. So it wasn't there during what I was about to find under that deep tree. And so I could hear the signal, and it was deep. And the first shot of this, being so hot, everything was multiplied. First shot of the shovel just rang because it was a root. I said, oh, great. I got to go around a wrist-sized root on both sides to get down to where this signal is, I pinpoint. So I go around both sides and get down there about 8 or 9 inches, make the story shorter, and I hit another root. I said, well, that's it. I'm gonna rake the top of this dirt off, and if I don't get it in the next shovel load, I'm just gonna push it all back in there. All this for another shoe buckle or something like that, it's ridiculous. And it's too hot, so I've got a little edge going on there. Anyway, sure enough, it was out of the hole. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me, because when we lose the signal, it just means that you've knocked the coin out of the halo, which a halo is when the soil constitution of the coil eats at the metal and it leaches particles of the metal around it. It's like a guitar plugged into an amplifier, to a metal detector. And once you break that bond from the halo to the actual metal piece, and it'll drop down lower in the hole or something like that, you think it's gone. It's not there. And so you give up on the hole, and you just rake everything back in there, and now whatever's there has to build another halo for the next detectors that might be able to find it. Well, I was going to make that last pass over the dirt I just dug out, and bam, it hit. I said, wow, this is pretty cool. I got me another something there, but it's reading better than the rest of the targets, so I kick it with my boot. And when I did, a $5 gold piece comes out. An 1853 $5 gold piece. And I had this new little machine I was using. It had a little lightweight headphones and coil cord on it, and I didn't see where the cord is wrapped around my digger in my pouch, and so I took off the headphones. I don't care if that was my third gold coin. I took off my headphones and just threw them out in front of me and went, wow, like that. Well, the 82-year-old granddad over here, he's looking back at me, and he thinks I'm snake bit, because I'm starting to settle to the ground to grab that $5 gold piece. And I did. I went to the ground and grabbed the $5 gold piece. But in the meantime, the headphones came back and hit me in the face, and I was standing there groggy, looking like a drunk. So he comes sprinting over there, 82-year-old man sprinting in that heat, comes running over there. He said, are you snake bit? Are you snake bit? And I just opened my hand and showed him $5 gold piece, and he said, damn, I wish you were snake bit.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
That was another gold coin story.
Oh, man. So how many gold coins have you found over the years now?
Me? I have a total 9 right now. And that's not counting the 2 foreign ones I found when I was relic hunting in Arkansas. I found 2 of them in the same hole. They're a foreign gold coin. They're 11 karat gold.
We still got to count those too. Wow.
Yeah, I'm not counting those because they're foreign, but the other ones are all American that I found so far. I think I found 1 2 peso gold, but the rest of them are all American. $5 and $10, and I got a 2.5. but I've never found a 20 or a 50 or a 1. But that's okay. I'm not complaining.
I know most people that have metal detected for years are still waiting for that first one. But Dorian, what about you? I'm just curious. Have you found one or more? Or?
I'm taking the Fifth Amendment.
Okay. I understand that.
No,
I understand that.
it's the truth is just too embarrassing.
Oh, okay.
I am snake bit on gold coins. You'd thinking, you dig a couple 100,000 coins, you'd get at least one, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Well, one excuse you can use is you hunted around Keith for so long, he done found them all.
Yeah.
Well, the thing was, apparently the good Lord thought that I needed to be humbled, and so Keith was the one appointed to take care of that.
There you go.
I've noticed just about every one I found was from somebody that could afford them. The plantation owners, or this was some kind of stage stop deal that a lot of people get in and out of.
Right.
No telling how many gold coins came on that and stuff. So,
Yeah, because most of the time people were just trying to scrape together.
Excuse me. If you all hear those chimes, that's a driveway alarm I have. I've got deer walking. I've got deer walking in front of the motion detector. So I apologize for that. I forgot to turn it off before we started the.
Did you say? What'd you say? You got dinner walking in front of the?
No, deer.
That's right.
I got white-tailed deer walking in front of it.
Yeah, dinner.
Deer. D-E-E-R. Dinner.
Hey, Keith, evidently he's never tasted how good them deer are. You know it? Or he'd catch what I'm saying.
I was raised on it.
Hey, Mike. Mike, you're talking to somebody that ate venison burgers in Scotland.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they serve them in the pubs over there. You can get organic venison burgers almost anywhere in Scotland.
I love venison. Bill said walking jerky on the driveway.
Walking jerky. I like that. Yeah, deer jerky. Wow. There you go. Okay.
I know I couldn't have had meat several times in my family if it wasn't for the deer hunt. I went out there and shot my share of it and put it in the freezer. I had to go buy another freezer. So used to fill them up, but last few years I haven't been out.
Hey, Keith, before we get away from the gold coins, I had a hunting partner for a number of years named Don Painter, and I think Don has gone to his great reward by now. I've lost track of him. He moved to Florida, but anyway, Don hunted the Confederate camps down in South Texas.
Yeah.
And he found a number of gold coins, and they were all $1 gold pieces.
Yeah.
So if you want to know where the $1 gold pieces are, you just got a tip.
Well, I know where they're at, but I don't seem to get over one. And, a $1 gold piece, after it's been there that many years, will sink tremendously. And so you definitely have to be right dead center over something that small, smaller than our dime that we use today. And it's, the CCC camps and WC camps are all originally paid the first year that they were in operation. They were paid with $1 gold pieces. But too many of the people that got paid was losing them. And I had a big fit about it, so they started paying them with $1 silver dollars, So, but that first year, if you can find one of those early places where they built those camps or built, and some of the Confederate camps were, the original camps were all redone by the CCC, and they built walls around them, rock walls and stuff like that. But if it happens to date back, the site dates back to the first issue of payment on the back when they started, Roosevelt or somebody like that started back in that day. Well, anyway, that's the one that you'll really get lucky at if you hunt slow.
That's a great tip. Yeah.
You know, another thing, my dad told this story a lot. He may even be listening tonight, but I can't remember exactly which gold coin it was. But my dad. Well, there was an echo. Sorry. Is there too much of an echo, y'all?
No, you sound good here.
Okay, it
must sound fine.
Anyway, so my dad was visiting some Civil War museum of some sort, and there was the soldier's diary, and he started reading some of this diary that was there, and he said there was this thing in one of the soldiers' diary, and they were fighting near some river, and they had to cross some river, and he was writing about, well, today I lost my $10 gold piece in the such and such river when we were crossing, blah 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 blah, and you wonder how much because I hunt rivers a lot, especially just like Keith. We got to do a few weeks ago after the Lions camp. We went and hunted a few swimming holes together. But and I've only found a handful of silver coins in the rivers and creeks, and I think one half British halfpenny from the 1700s. But that's been it. But can you imagine how much is still in the rivers, or maybe even in the Gulf of Mexico, or that have traveled downstream, or along the banks? There's got to be so much. I think it was kind of like that place you were talking about earlier, Dorian, about just even like Indian artifacts along the banks of some of those rivers and stuff, and how it washes along the edge.
Right. I'm amazed we haven't found Pioneer period coins in those. At least not so far. I haven't found any. Don't get me wrong. We find plenty of Pioneer period coins, but we find them on dry land in the bean fields. Right. It's generally where we do well on those. Cut Spanish silver, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Keith, how have you done? Let's ask Keith how he's done on cut Spanish coins.
Oh yeah.
I haven't got that many Spanish ones, but now I got some slave coins.
I'm sorry,
really?
Some what?
Slave coins. See, the slaves believed on their right ankle they had to wear a piece of silver.
Oh.
That kept them healthy. The reason that they were worried about healthy is that the owner of the slave might not, if they couldn't work that day because they were sick for some reason, they might not get fed either. So they wanted to make sure they didn't get sick, and they could get beaten as well by being sick. And so they wore this with a piece of baling string. You take a baling string and sort it down to one fine little fiber, and you tie this on your ankle, that silver coin. Well, that you found one when you see a square hole in it, because they used a square nail to punch the hole in the usually seeded coin is what they used, and anything from a half dime to a quarter. But when they get out in the fields with all that stubble, it breaks it right off their ankle. Well, I was down there on the White River in Arkansas one day, and we had a big hunt there to just see if we could find any relics. Well, I didn't find many relics, and I went out and I was having some trouble with my back then, so I was barely moving. And the one target I did get that was deep, I dug up, and it was a slave coin. It was a seeded dime with a square hole in it. And someone had been planting on that White River bank years ago, and of course the guys that came with me, they didn't want to talk to me anymore. But I had my Polaris side-by-side out there to help me get around so I wouldn't have to walk so much, and I fell. I couldn't get up. And we were in this kind of stick grass, you might say, It stands up, it's straw-looking stuff, and it was about 2 foot high. And so I stuck my shovel in the ground because I got a fluorescent handle on my shovel, and everybody could see where I'm at. Well, the guys that's hunting around me is probably 150 yards away. They see my shovel all right, but they just thought I was laying on the ground. They didn't think about it. I couldn't get up. And so,
God.
2.5 hours later, I thought, well, Lord, this is a beautiful spot. I could do it right here if you're ready. I'm just laying there. And finally, I made another attempt and finally got a leg on me and got up. But it was hell. I couldn't do it for a while there. And so, but all I came out with, because it was short hunt for me, was just that one slave coin. But that was enough that they asked for it for the museum and everything else, and I wouldn't give it to them because their museum's not much of a part of museum. I've donated a lot of stuff to museums over the years, but that's the only one I can think of I turned down to do. But anyway, it's just that museum, Dorian up there at not Pleasant Hill, but Mansfield.
Oh yeah, Mansfield.
I found 2 of those Texas Tom Green drops, and I donated it because they had a big Tom Green display in there, and never knew anything about him making those bullets.
Really?
One of the non-manufactured bullets during the Civil War, and he cut the mold out of bodart and made the mold and would make those 50 caliber bullets called Tom Green. They're up to $350 a piece now on a drop. I would think of the 2, I donated them, but I've got about 6 or 7 that drops. I got one on display and a write-up about it in my shop, stuff like that. But it is an unusual bullet, and if somebody hadn't seen it, they'd carry it around forever and think there's nothing of it, but it's one of the most expensive bullets.
Keith, can I make a comment right quick? We have a number of our guys from We Dig the Civil War are listening in tonight. And guys, good. I want to say to you right now, that thing about the square hole with a square nail in the coin, did any of you know that? Probably not. Did any of you know that a mini ball mold was made out of ironwood or bodark wood? We call it hedge apple up here in the north.
Yeah.
Did any of you know that? No, you didn't. And you know why you didn't know it? It's because you're not to the level of being the researcher that Keith is. Some of you don't think research is very important. Keith is showing you 2 examples right here of what happens when you become a good researcher. That is excellent pieces of information. I know I didn't know about the square hole. If I'd found one, I would not have known why it had a square hole in it, but I will now.
Let me say something too. You can also get those square holes. They used to, I found it with silver coins, large cents, even a couple Indian heads. They would put holes in them. What I've heard is they'd nail them to a beam in the barn as kind of a good luck thing. And I'm guessing down south here in Texas, I totally believe what Keith's saying, but you find them up north too. And
that's a good point, Mike. Yeah.
They would do that.
The trick there is the location where you find them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where they did have slaves in the South here, and you're in big fields, and there was nothing there other than a big field, stuff like that. That's where the stubble of cane or corn or whatever would rip it off their leg, and they'd be there just laying there. Of course, the string would be eat up by now since the mid-1800s. So, but it's the location, really. Everything tells you kind of about. You talk about slave coins. I've never been able to dig one, but I had a friend dig one time, and he said, I could understand everything on the front of it. It's got the name of Israel. That's probably the slave's name. I said, yeah, most slaves took their owner's last name. Most people didn't know that. So the slave, a lot of times, didn't know their last name, so they took the owner, the slave's last name. But also, it usually had some kind of monetary or something showing how much that owner paid for that slave. And he wanted that much work out of him per day. Well, he said, no, the only thing I got is on the back. It says, 1 G, 2 C, and 1 M. I said, you don't know what that is? He says, no. Well, 2 G is 2 goats, 1 C is 1 cow, and 1 M is a mule. That's why he traded for the slave.
Wow.
He said, well, that's amazing. I've had this for years, and I didn't know what that meant. I said, yeah, the research will finally pay off for you. You know, research that stuff out.
Yep.
But, so it's actually telling him, he looks at that coin, okay, Israel or something like that. He usually knows the name pretty well. But he looks at what he spent on that slave, if that slave's slacking off, and he wants to see some improvement. Or you don't get fed tonight, you know?
Yep.
I was a slave owner, honest. I know a little too much about slaves. But anyway.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Keith, while we're talking about slaves, though, there's a natural tendency, and again, this is part of the psychology of treasure hunting, but we'll do this as a little tidbit here. A lot of people think, what's the point of hunting around slave quarters, because they were slaves and they had nothing. And quite frankly, many of them were thieves. And slave quarters are the absolute one of the primo places to find not only single coins but caches.
Yeah.
There was a plantation site being turned into a subdivision north of Dallas, and they had some slave shanties still standing, and they bulldozed them. And a friend of mine got permission to metal detect as long as he stayed out of the way of the bulldozer. So he's out there detecting this one slave shanty site, which had a big cut stone that was used for the back step. And there was a well about 30 feet from it. And he got about halfway between the well and got a signal, and he noticed that the bulldozer driver was watching him. So he pretended like he dug a piece of junk, and he came back after all the construction guys went home. And he dug down about 7-8 inches, and he found a brown snuff glass jar full of silver dollars. And he got a faint signal in the hole after removing it, and about another 2 or 3 inches below that was another snuff glass jar full of silver dollars. And so just as a precaution, he widened the hole to where he get his coil down in there, and he started getting another signal. And he thought, oh, there's a third jar with silver dollars in there. So he dug down about 8 inches more, and there was a half-gallon milk pail full of silver dollars.
Gosh.
You know, so that there's a little twist on hunting slave shanty sites because they would steal from their owners. And I know guys that have found caches of silverware, anything that could be stolen from inside the house can end up buried near the slave shanties.
Yeah, they would have had to hide them, you know, to bury them. And
a lot of times, see, they got sold, you know, to somebody else and never had a chance to recover.
Right.
You know, they couldn't take it with them when they were sold. And
after a while, you get used to the plantation sites. Like I used to hunt over here in Louisiana all the time around Shreveport and stuff, south of Shreveport. But you learn where the shanty shacks of the slaves used to be. And it would always be next to some water because they had to bathe, they had to drink. Everything was dependent on the water. So they built their little shotgun shacks where they lived right along that bank of that water so they would have water available all the time. And you get out in front and look everywhere. Matter of fact, we did a plantation site in, let's see, it was 5 years ago over in Arkansas. And we got an invitation to go, and a bunch of us went out there. There's about 20 of us. And we hunted all over the thing, found one mini ball out next to the barn, and that was it. I think the owner was unloading his old Civil War gun. But what was neat was we located where the shanty shacks were that they were living in, the slaves. But out in front of it, in the field, was a place that was perfectly rectangular. I want to say it's as big as any home place that was out there that, I don't know, probably 20 feet by 40 foot square. And it was just loaded, full of stuff. The more you hunted it, the deeper you dug, there's more stuff. And they couldn't figure out what this site was. There was personal items, coins, and even got up to the 1940s, I think it was, we dug a Walk of Liberty half out of it. But field was covered in V-nickels and buffaloes and stuff like that. And there was one or two silvers out of it. But in this one rectangular spot, I mean, you could draw the lines of what was there. And nobody knew. They were all standing around the crowd. What do you think it is? What do you think this was? And stuff like that. And I said, I'll be glad to tell you. They said, how would you know? I said, well, just, studying on stuff like that. No group of slaves get together without building a brush arbor to have Sunday's preaching in. That was the brush arbor. Sitting on stumps, our pieces of log, listening to the preacher, singing. Slaves were big into that. And Sunday was the day off for them. So that's a brush arbor. That's why you had all this congregation of somebody losing it in this perfect rectangle out there in front of the slave quarters. And so everybody seemed to accept that. And then one of the guys came back. It was not supposed to be there, and he dug a gold coin out of it.
Wow.
Dug a $10 gold piece out of it. Everybody else missed. So in that rectangle. So, one of the slaves had gold.
Wow.
Great story.
Yeah. You start to get the feel of plantations, and a lot of them set up kind of the same way. We used to drive in Louisiana, and we'd drive around looking for these sites on plantation sites where something happened, and we'd wait till noon during the day, and we'd stand up in the back of an open bed pickup, and we'd look in all the different directions as we're driving up and down the old back roads like that, and we'd see reflection of glass way out there 200 yards away. We'd stop and ask the owner of the plantation if we could go out there and hunt, because right then at that time of year, all the fields are plowed. Can we hunt back there where we saw that glass? Well, sure. It can't hurt nothing. It's been dug up too many times. So we're going out there and we're finding all kinds of stuff. So that broke up glass was a sign of where somebody lived back there at one point in time, or collected or did something,
Keith, I'm curious. Up here, we have a lot of soybeans and fields. I have access right now to something like 4,500 acres of soybean fields. And in these, of course, are Indian camps, but there's also a lot of pioneer log cabin sites. And we can spot them from the road with binoculars way out in the fields, because they set on limestone rock pillars, and pieces of this white limestone will be scattered around the site where they once stood, and you can spot them from a long distance off with binoculars. Is it similar down there in that regard?
Yeah, it is, because there's a place outside of Winsboro I don't think that you ever knew about. Forgot the name of the town. It's got an old school there. You had to know about it. But anyway, that was a transition place for everything that came from Jefferson off the river, off the boats, went there first before it was carried on to Dallas. And it was a big mecca there, and you can still see the limestone pillars out there where the buildings, the warehouses were built on, out in the field.
That's neat. I want to jump in real quick. I think it's funny you're talking about spotting stuff from the road. When I lived in Ohio, I kept a pair of binoculars behind my seat, in between between the truck seat and the back. And if I seen a high spot in a field that looked out of place or something, I'd pull my binoculars, pull over the side of the road, pull out my binoculars, and it led me to a lot of good sites. You see that glass. Sometimes you get, when you're in a field and it's all, almost black dirt, and you see red, well, that tells you, old brick. But usually it was the glass. You'd get a little shimmer of glass here and there, and you think, well, that's it. There's that old house site right there. Now, I never seen the limestone rock like you're talking about, Dorian. Not in Ohio. I'm sure there probably is places like that, but I can't remember ever seeing limestone like you're saying. But yeah, I always carried a pair of binoculars in my truck.
Okay.
I almost bought a pair of binoculars the other day, and I was like, I would definitely use them for that very thing, is what I was thinking, spotting stuff like that when I'm out in some of those places. But I mean, I know that you've used drones before to find locations. I'm curious, have Keith or Dorian, have either one of you ever used a drone to find locations on large properties?
I have not.
No, I tend to stay old school too much, and I don't move with all this new electronics in here. I work for electronics. Still, I'd like to get one. I'd love to try it.
Hey, guys, let me tell you, I didn't get into drones because I thought they were complicated and easy to wreck. DJI, Matt, the co-host for Tuesday Night Show, he's the one who introduced me to drones. And anybody can fly them. His three-year-old son was flying his drone when he was 3 years old. They will land, you can set them up to land themselves. They'll take off. They've got what am I trying to say? You can put it in safety mode, and if you get too close to a tree branch or a wall, yes, there's sensors that keep you from wrecking it. And you can just the detail. You can like Google Earth. Boy, I'm getting bad feedback. Google Earth.
Yeah,
you can.
When the battery gets low, it'll come back to you.
Yep, it'll come back to you on its own.
Yeah.
And the difference is, like with Google Earth, you get zoomed in so far you can't see. This is no kidding. The first time we ever used one, I was on about a half a square mile piece of property I had permission for, and I knew where one site was. Matt put his up in the air, and first off, he was looking for high spots. He'd fly out to them. He would drop down to about 8 foot. The fields were bare at the time. And he would just go back and forth on that high spot, and we were looking for brick and pottery. And this is how much detail there was. He stopped, and we watched a worm crawl over a rock about the size of a quarter. And I'm telling you, if you knew your rocks, you'd know what kind of rock that was. It was such good detail. I was blown away. And right then and there, I seen, now my drone I've left in Ohio from my brother, because that's where, I'll use it when I go back to visit, which I get back a couple times. But it's just, it's mind blowing what those drones are capable of. And I think they're a huge tool that's not utilized yet by the mainstream detectorist. And if you're hunting anywhere that there's fields, big open spaces, I'll tell you what, those things are incredible.
Mike, you just gave me an idea. We've got Dennis Wins coming to our little reunion, and Dennis is well into drone technology. He uses it to hunt caches. So I'm going to ask him to bring a drone and give us a demonstration. How's that for an activity, Keith?
Yeah, I've got a guy over here that does it for a living.
Oh.
He property lines on maps, Earth maps, using a drone. He's got two in his truck all the time. That's where Michael hit him up to try to learn how to run his drone when he got his Michael on Gypsy. He's a member of the club. He was there the day y'all were hunting. Him and his wife were there. You took a picture with his wife, and then Michael come over there and got a picture with both of them.
Another thing, like these DJIs, they will hover. If you let go of the controls, they will just sit there. I mean, you're not worrying about it falling out of the sky. We flew in pretty heavy wind. There was pretty good wind that day, and it corrects itself. Now, if you just let it sit there and if you let go of the controls, it will real slow. It'll start to drift off a little bit. I'm talking inches. I'm not talking feet. And we were in some pretty good wind. They are just an incredible tool. Bill in the chat says need a drone equipped with LiDAR. That starts off, from my understanding, if you want a drone to carry LiDAR and a LiDAR unit, you're looking at about $30,000, Bill. That's a little out of mind. Now, I've seen the DJI Phantom 4s, which is a heck of it's their most current Phantom one, and you can get them refurbished from the factory for right around $700. Now, a lot of us have a lot more than that in metal detectors, and I'm telling you what, it is just a great piece. And I'll tell you something else I've been looking into. I don't have the money to spend on something that might not work, but they're also putting cameras on them, infrared cameras, and they're using them in farm fields to look at drainage and how the crops are growing and all that stuff. It's a huge tool. I've done a lot of research on this. What I couldn't get anybody to tell me was, well, what I'd found, I'd come across an article and a couple pictures of them using infrared over in England to find these sites. And what they were saying was the crops where a wall or something was that's still down there, the crops didn't grow as good. There wasn't, because that wall was blocking off some of the water source, where if there was a wall and the wall was taken out, then there was loose dirt there, so the crops grew better. Now, I saw some really good images, but I couldn't get a hold of anybody that took those images and stuff to verify. But you can get, you're talking, I want to say less than like $2,000 for one setup with infrared. And from what I've read and what I've seen, that's a big purchase for me, number one. But number two, if it didn't work like I think it will, that's a big chunk of money from my family. But I think you'll see somebody will get into infrared, and I think that'll go. But just a drone right now is incredible. When you can fly it out a mile and see a high spot in a field and drop it down to 8 foot and see a worm crawl across a rock, obviously you're going to spot the glass and the brick and the pottery in that field.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Especially after a big rain.
Right.
Yeah. Our biblical archaeology team is using really advanced drones right now over in Saudi Arabia. I saw a video. They flew it right over top of 6 feet over the top of the real Mount Sinai, and you can see the burned and blackened rock just 6 feet below the drone. It's really incredible.
Yeah, well, my infrared days were way back there when you had to use a 35 millimeter camera with a special lens to take infrared, and the film on it was high as a cat's back to do it. And of course, I have a buddy that had a plane over here in Gilmer, and so he flew me over this place 4 times before I learned how to use the infrared. But the deal was I was part of the Historical Society here in Upshur County, and also on the museum board. Well, the thing of it is I had this burr in my saddle about Gilmer ever since I lived here. The old Gilmer that moved, this is the new Gilmer where it's at, but the old Gilmer was on the other side of a creek up here that floods a lot in the low-lying areas, which flooded most of the town. And finally they got together and waited until it flooded, so everybody on that end of the town, north end of the town, couldn't vote to have it over here on the south end. They had it on the south bank over here on higher ground. So, but the problem is every time that somebody gets permission out there to hunt that area, that they say or historically point to every time, well, old Gilmer was 2 miles up the road, there's not even a door hinge found. Nothing. Few nails out there, but nothing as far as anything that you would usually see from any structure at all. For 30 years now, there's not been anything. And that bothered me. I said, I'm not even going to go hunt it because I'm talking to good hunters that's out there. They're not finding a stinking thing. I said, I'm going to do a little research on this. So I spent about 6 years researching it and trying to do the justice to the museum and Historical Society. I finally told them one day, well, I think I found Old Gilmer. They said, well, yeah, it's just 2 miles north. I said, no. I said, believe as a crow flies, it's about 8 miles on the same creek that still floods when they get a lot of rain. That was where Old Gilmer was. And they said, how do you know? And I said, well, I actually took infrared. Infrared will actually show, if you back up far enough, you see maps with old right-of-ways and stuff that the Indians use, Cherokee traces and stuff like that, that has a shaded area on the map of where that trace was. Well, that's kind of what you get. I had to take the pictures and blow them up to poster size and put them together as close as I could on the terrain. And then I had to back clear across the room. And when I adjust my lighting, I could see the shaded areas, rectangle shaded areas of the buildings that stood there and in between the streets of the town. And I said, this is Old Gilmer here. And then plus I had 2 diaries from that area that said that they, things like that on Sunday, we'd go down to the train station. No known train station was ever there, but they lived there, was raised there, and they walked from their house to the train station. As they watched the train go by and the people in the train on Sundays. Well, then the diaries also said that they were living in Gilmer. See? And Gilmer here, they keep saying it's 2 miles up the road because all the records had burnt down years ago when the courthouse burnt down. But anyway, I actually proved it without archaeologists because I knew what would happen if I turned it over to archaeologists. So I proved it, that it was there, and I got thrown out of the museum board and off the Historical Society, and to this day, after I get back on it, they tossed me out. There was a few people back then that, felt like they owned everything in town, and they had to say who is and who isn't on certain things. So I just thanked them and left. To me, I proved it. But I'm still trying to get hold of the guy that lives in New York that owns it. The caretaker out there has allowed me to go look around and stuff, but it took a little while for an idiot like me to learn how to do infrared. And first off, you wait till the leaves are down. I didn't do that the first flight. I was taking pictures of foliage. You couldn't see the ground. So the picture wouldn't penetrate anything. Then I didn't know how to shoot infrared. Then I didn't have the right lens. And so I finally went to one of the bigger stores on photography, and they taught me how to use infrared with my camera. And they, of course, the film's $5, so I bought another roll and talked my buddy into the 4th flight, and we actually got something out of it. But now with the improvements of infrared, I've still used a little bit of it because we're looking for, in West Texas, some gold bars that's buried. 2 holes of them have been found in the same field, but there's 7 more.
Wow.
Holes. It's Gene Lafitte. He come up here in East Texas a lot and buried a lot of stuff, and this is over in West Texas, and I don't know whether he was there or not, but they say the gold bars, it's in the Abilene newspaper where they found the 2 holes with 16 gold bars in each hole, and at 15 foot deep. And we're using infrared because actually raw gold like that molded will leave off a gas. Infrared will see that gas. It'll turn blue on gold and red on silver.
Yeah, it's krypton gas.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
So we got that to run, but I've got another little treasure first before I do that.
Keith, why we've got you on tonight, and we're kind of there already. I just recently had a conversation with somebody who was saying that they think the detectors have come such a far way in such a short time, and the technology of the detectors has gotten so good, and that's really where it's at to make the better finds and, find stuff where people have hunted. I think it's more in in the research, not just new technology in the research, but I think it's things like, infrared and stuff like that. I mean, I think it's more in your research and keeping up with new technology that can be used in the detectors. I mean, I still prefer analog detectors field hunting than the heavy iron. And, you can buy some really old, analog detectors that'll get the job done better, in my personal opinion, better than the newest, greatest digital detectors. And I mean, do you agree with that, or what's your thought on that? Being that you're so into detectors, I mean, you work on them.
I've used all different kinds, and I'll tell you this, and this is a fact: the needle on a digital meter is faster than any digital that you can come out with.
Right.
It will tell you more in the reaction of that needle. Will tell you more about the target before you dig.
Keith, excuse me, we need to clarify. You said the needle on a digital. I think you meant analog, didn't you?
Analog. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Needle type meter on analog is faster than any digital meter that's ever been invented. That's
now. I mean, don't you think? I mean, an analog processes the signal faster. I mean, especially in iron is what I mean. Well, I hunt. I mean, that's where I hunt with an analog detector is the iron, and what I find, even take a really cheap Tesoro, and you got a disc out iron, I get less clip tones and falsing and stuff than I will with a digital detector, and it'll work through that iron and latch onto targets better than the digital detectors. I mean, do you
right.
So you agree with that?
Yes,
okay.
I do.
Yeah. Now,
I've used a bunch of analog type detectors over the years, and I still think I find more than I do with the digital stuff that they have out today.
What would be a good analog with a meter? What do you prefer?
Well, if you don't mind the weight, it's distributed well. I'd say the White's 6000 DI SL or something like that, because that is a good all-around detector. I don't care where you go in the United States, it'll work in the soil, wherever you go. And then if you want something a little lighter, I'd go, of course, Compass is out of business, but I used to love the Compass XP Pro or the Gold Pro, Compass Gold Pro. But both of those had analogs, and they were fast, and I could tell a lot about the target before I ever stuck the shovel in the ground.
Huh. Do you have any of those for sale?
Yeah.
Do you?
Sure do.
I'll have to get a hold of you. I'll tell you what. Here lately, I've really been thinking about getting a metered machine. And I've got some of the latest detectors and stuff, and there's some of them I like a lot, and I think they're good. But I've really wanted to try a metered detector. I've never had one. I've just the analog I've had were just tone only. So
yeah.
Keith, what do you think about the? What do you think about the old Garrett ADS Deep Seeker with a fortress for deep stuff?
Yeah, that is a good machine. It has an analog system in it, and it's I like the original ADS. I found a mini cannonball with it, or cannon shell. Then you put that 10-inch or 12-inch coil on there, and you get some depth of it, baby, and deep anyway.
It was the big one was 14-inch.
Yeah,
it was awfully heavy, but boy, like you said, I found my first 12-pound cannonball with it at Port Hudson, 4 feet deep.
It seemed like I remember that.
Yeah.
Wasn't it you telling me that story about that 80-pounder you dug out of the side of the embankment and found out you couldn't get it? because you couldn't have any way to grab it? Was that it?
No, actually, that was the only day I found two shells. I found a 20-pound parrot and a 30-pound parrot. And the 30-pound was back under the roots of a giant beech tree that was growing straight vertical right out of the side of about a 45-degree slope bank. And all I had was like a little tent-shaped window between two roots, and I dug for 2 hours with my big old Bowie knife. You remember that Bowie knife I used to carry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've still got it. Well, anyway, I got all the way up to my armpit back, under the tree. And the guys I'm with are yelling, come on, we got to go, And I said, I'm not leaving without my shell, and well, we're going to leave you, And so in desperation, I'm sticking my knife into the dirt, left, right, straight ahead, down, nothing. No, I'm not hitting anything. And finally, in desperation, I turned the knife over and went straight up, and I hear clunk. And I had dug under this 30-pound parrot shell by missing the bottom of it by 3 inches. And it was a miracle it didn't fall out of the roof of the hole and break my arm. But, when I found it, I just did 2 or 3 little prying digs with the point of my knife, and boom, down it came into the hole.
Yeah.
But
I dug his cannon one time. And I turned out to be a shaft on a water wheel.
Well, I actually did find an exploded brass cannon on Chickasha Bluffs in Vicksburg. I had just found it. It's a very famous cannon, and it had exploded. And the pieces were just over the edge of the bluff, down about 25, 30 feet, about 6 inches deep. And they were massive. And it would have been a major recovery operation. And just at the moment I found the first piece, the local guy I was with says, we got to get out of here. Somebody's coming, and I don't have permission to be on this property. Well, he hadn't told me that. I thought we had permission. And so I cover up my brass, a big old, beautiful green patina piece of brass cannon. I cover it over real quick with leaves and stuff, and I take off down the hill towards the car. And on the way, I picked up 3 more signals of great big pieces of brass. So I believe the whole cannon is still there, and I imagine it's still there to this day.
We went back one time. We found some cannonballs up there at Grand Decor.
Oh, yeah, Granico.
Found those 6-pounders, and they were using them on the river there to punch holes below the water line on those supply boats, the boats coming up.
Yeah, and the boats were trapped by low water for a while.
And Dorian comes up with this idea. He says, let's save some time. I'll drive around here next to the highway, and we'll pick these up out of the ditch. So let's just roll them down the embankment here, and they'll get in the ditch. Well, the first one he rolls down jumps the ditch and hits a sheriff's car right in the side as it drives by.
That wasn't Dorian. You got me.
Somebody was with me. I thought it was you. But anyway, they throw the billfold at me and keys and say, get lost. Get my truck. Bail me out. I had to go pull them out. That was 45 years ago or something like that. But anyway, I remember that down there at Grand Decor.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was one of your stunts. I get your stunts mixed up.
Keith, when we get together, I've got some really kind of stories that can only be told around the campfire.
Yeah.
So we'll have fun with those.
Oh yeah, that'd be the best part of it.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm sorry, I was getting Gypsy back in. We had a dropped call.
Oh.
So I missed part of the conversation, but I was going to say that I have ADS. I think it's a Garrett Huntmaster ADS groundhog 2-box machine.
Oh, cool. That is very cool. Huh.
Oh.
Still got the old 2 box with it. How about that?
Yeah.
Huh.
They did pretty good down 10, 12 feet, our early ones.
Yeah.
One day, Keith, I was working a treasure project west of Fort Worth near the Brazos River. And as I was going back into this area to look for these particular markers and things, there was a guy with a two box unit. I think it was a White's. I'm not sure. It's been so long now. But he had a big 2 box unit, and he was digging a hole, and he was down about 9 feet. And I looked at what he was doing, and I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "You're picking up the moisture in the tree roots. You're not picking up metal." Well, he told me where I could go, and he was ready to draw me a map of how to get there. And so I said, "Well, okay, have a nice day." So I go on, and I spent the day searching the side of a mesa. So I come back about 5:30 in the evening before the snakes get crawling real good. And I passed by this hole. It's now about 15 feet deep, and there's a 2 box unit wrapped around a tree.
That is funny.
Well, somebody else come find the 2 box now.
Yeah, there you go.
At Prairie Diane battlefield up there at Prescott, the open field right behind the motel there?
Yeah.
Yeah. We found the Navy Colt revolver was shot and everything, powder still in it.
Wow.
Then we found the cartridge to an Army Colt out there in that field. And I know you've hunted that field.
I have not.
Evidently, when kill it and stuff, but anyway, we went one time. There's 4 of us, and me and Bobby Pierce, we hunted together years ago, and we just started back hunting together. He lives up there in Winsboro. Anyway, he and I went with 2 other real renowned relic hunters, you might say. I'm talking about one of them's got an extensive collection, just unbelievable. But anyway, an unbelievable collection of relics, Civil War relics.
Uh-huh.
And so we're hunting this big field, and it's just dirt, it's plowed up, and the landowner lets us hunt every time we come out, and we get a motel room on the back of the motel. So all we have to do is leave our room, walk over to the field, and start hunting.
Yeah.
Across the parking lot. It's built that way. Dorian knows what I'm talking about. Anyway.
Yeah. And let's tell the folks that they built the interstate right through the middle of the battlefield.
That's right. They sure did. Right through smack dab. I don't know how many bullets are underneath that asphalt. But anyway, we're out there, and I look around, and I see Bobby way down there on the opposite end. He must be 10 acres away from me. But I don't see the other 2 guys. They're gone. And I should be able to see clear across this field. And I said, well, boy, it's a long walk to get to the wood line and stuff over there. I don't think they went that far. So I start walking back towards Bobby, and Bobby's coming back towards me. And I get to a place, and there they are. They're down in a 4-foot hole. I said, what are y'all doing? They said, we got cannon. We got a cannon right here, man. It's a cannon. It's lengthy, and it's going off. It's a cannon. And immediately I looked up at Bobby, and I just turned my head, and there's that red post over there. And in the other direction, there's that sign over there. It's a gas line. But I don't say anything to them. I just sit down on the edge of the hole, watch them dig for a while. Bobby comes up there, and Bobby sits down, and there's a hole on the other side. He said, what are they doing? I said, they found a cannon. He said, really? Do we need to get down there and help? I said, there's no room in there, but for 2 of them, just let them go on. And I pointed at the post, and he finally caught on to where I was pointing at, the painted orange post and a red post, and then the sign back there on the other direction. And he's just laughing up a storm, and I said, do you think we ought to say something to him about it? And they wasn't even paying attention to us talking. He said, yeah, might as well. They got all this to put back in there. And then they raised their head, what's going on? And so anyway, we finally showed them the post, and they threw the shovels down, jumped out of the hole. They had all that dirt to put back in that hole. But it's so funny.
That's funny. That's a little mean, but hey, you taught them a good lesson by letting them keep digging it for a while, right?
Well, I mean, it was good entertainment. The day was going slow. Good entertainment.
That's great, Keith. I love it.
Hey, Keith.
Yeah.
Keith, about a half a mile farther from the motel where you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's a farm, and a friend of mine's daddy owned that farm, and he told me how his grandfather used to plow up rifles and cannonballs and shells and things, and he threw them in a sinkhole on the farm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I said, he said he even had some cannonballs on his front porch till somebody stole them. And I said, do you think, the boy's father was now living on the farm. He said, do you think your dad would let me go out and dig in that sinkhole? He says, oh, sure. So he called his dad, got permission. So you know how far of a drive it is there, and what is it, 240 miles or something from Dallas?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I drive all the way down there, and I stop at the house, check in with his dad, and he says, oh, yeah. He said, just go out there behind the barn. You see the barn out there. He says, the sinkhole's back behind the barn. Well, I go out there all excited about all the stuff I'm going to dig out of this sinkhole. And I get to the sinkhole, and there's the remains of an old barn have been pushed into it. It's totally full and sticking up on the top of the ground.
Oh, no.
And I go back and I said, what's with the sinkhole? I said, I thought it was still open. He said, oh, no, we pushed the old barn into that hole before we built the new one.
Oh.
Yeah. So I just driven 240 miles one way for nothing.
Oh, goodness. And, if a barn fit in that sinkhole, you'd have probably never got to it anyhow.
Well, it's hard to say. It would depend if dirt had been pushing on top. But he said they plowed up cannonballs in that field all the time, and I had already checked the maps, and the field was in a perfect location for that to be true. So, and he said rifles and everything else that they threw in there.
Oh, goodness.
This is starting to sync up with a story I know of there. The guy that runs the museum there downtown, his daddy used to run that museum. And somewhere out of town there was a farm that his daddy lived on, and I understood it that people would bring him cannonballs and stuff off their land because they didn't want them. And what he plowed up too, and he would throw it into a creek bottom down there. And I've always wanted to chase that down and find that creek bottom and dig all those shells out of it, But anyway, it may be the same story. It sounds awful alike.
Well, I don't think it is. This guy's farm, actually, on one side, the boundary is the interstate highway.
Yeah.
And I don't remember seeing any creeks anywhere nearby.
Okay. Well, it's been a sinkhole. You know how the stories evolve after a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I've always wanted to go back there and find that creek, I'll tell you. Yep. We went down there one time and went up a dirt road. I was trying to find that, and there was a bunch of people from my club in East Texas that was with us, and we just did a car chain like a wagon train, and we had to find a place to hunt, metal detect. So I knew of this spot along a creek bank that was really good. You just turn left up there as you left Prescott out of downtown, just turn left up there a little ways. There used to be an old store there on the corner. It's dilapidated. You may know what I'm talking about. And we went up that road, and just before you get to the interstate that they built through the middle of the battlefield, there was this flat area, and the creek was over there to one side. So Anyway, we got out and we started hunting that. Well, come good daylight, we're there right at break day, and come good daylight, here comes loads of people carrying rifles. I'm going, oh man, what did we just do? The place wasn't fenced, it wasn't posted or anything like that. I thought we could get out and do a little hunting before we got chased off anyway. But we were finding bayonets. One gal nearly stepped on the tip of a bayonet straight up and down in a hole. And her coil bounced off of it when she was swinging, and she found out it was a piece of metal. Tried to pull it out of the ground. It was a full infill bayonet with a tip missing, of course. And so we were digging bullets and stuff like that. Everybody was tickled, and some buttons come up and what have you. Well, it turned out all these guys going by real slow looking at us on both sides of the road up there were pissed off because they were deer hunters and we were there at opening day of deer season. And they had the next property past us where they were hunting. But they didn't tell us why they were mad or why they looked so grisly when they went by. They just went by real slow looking at us. Wonder if we were a survey team or something, I guess. But anyway, when they came back, they were all smiles. They were friendly. They got out, laughed with us, shook hands, said it's the best deer hunt they ever had. We chased all the deer off that acreage around to them, and they had a time over there shooting. And we heard them. They were shooting like crazy over there, so we chased all the deer into them. They loved us.
That's a good story. Yeah, that's great.
That is a good one. That is a good. Guys, are you still good? We're getting a little over 2 hours now. I mean, I'm okay if we keep going if you guys are ready, but I know it's tough being on a long show.
I'm okay.
And if I wasn't on the show, I'd be telling somebody else and stuff, so you might as well get in on it. It'll be another Gypsy. It'll be Gypsy 2. I'll tell it to next time, probably. You should have had a little Gypsy so I could influence her. That's what you should have.
Did you ever, by any chance, find where they had that artillery duel at the little town of Moscow, Arkansas?
No, I never did. I went up there once or twice, I think, looking, and I never found it. It has to be outside of the town limit somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I think I've crossed every place around town.
Dorian says, I'm sure it is. I bet you he knows right where it's at.
Well, he knows a couple of places that I'm going to catch him when we meet up and hold him down until he draws it to me on a map. I know a couple of places he's talking about. A fairground that's outside of Winsboro there that some fruit vegetable guy told him about, and he got out there and dug a bunch of silver. And that was right when he was getting ready to move. He was moving out in, and so he never got to finish hunting that. I'd like to hunt it if I soak it out of him.
Yeah, that guy, what was his name? He was in the Sulphur Springs Melee Technical Club.
Yeah.
I think his name began with a W. I can't remember. Old white-haired guy. But he found a Carnival Midway, and you'd have never known it if somebody had pointed it out to you. But it was just a little bit off the Bain Road from Winsboro to the interstate. And he took 6,000 coins out of the Midway.
Yeah.
And he took me out there to see if he'd missed anything. And when I dug 57, he said it's time to go. He's not sure he cleaned it.
Hey, Keith.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Dorian. I apologize.
Right.
When we all meet up, I'll be more than happy to help hold him down while you get the information out of him. We'll have all kinds of Texas sites.
He'll have a faint memory about that time. He can sit here and talk all day, but all of a sudden lose his memory when you want him to draw a map.
Yeah, right.
Hey, Keith. I have a feeling I'm going to have an attack with Treasureheimer's disease.
Treasureheimer. I believe that one.
That's funny.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah, that's great.
The best part of this hobby is friends and laughter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
The friends are the biggest treasure you'll ever find.
Yeah, that's right.
They really are. Keith, did you ever work the nights, the Golden Circle Treasures?
Some. I'm still in touch with Bob up there in Arkansas. He's just about gone completely blind now. But,
really?
he wrote a couple of books on it. And he's got some sites that need to be checked out, and he really needs my services to go and see what we can dig up and stuff, or what we find there. But they're supposed to be KGCs.
I'll talk to you more about that. You don't want to do that. Bob is active KGC. He's a Sentinel.
Yeah.
You don't want to work with him on the KGC. Believe me.
I've kind of felt that way, but he's been a good friend up to so far, so I didn't judge him.
Yeah. There's
if I can learn more, and he wrote the books on it, I'm all for it.
Well, there's some things involving people who were associated with him who have disappeared without a trace.
Oh Lord. So, well, that happens if you do like that guy up there in Monroe, Louisiana, that called me about 10 years back. He called me up, and he's a colored guy, and he just told me, he said, I've got a location of a treasure on my own homestead. And my daddy and my granddaddy knew about it, and I knew about it. Nobody else in the family knew about it. And after we dug it up, we started at the wrong spot. It was a building built underground in a pasture. We'd hang it up when we were trying to deep plow. We finally found out we went the wrong way and had to go all the way around it to find the door. Then when we got the door open, it killed my grandfather for razor wire, his booby trap. And then they had spears come out the side of the walls, and finally they lined the doorway with plywood in both directions and top. And then they got in, and he just reached in there and grabbed a handful, and there were gold escudos, Spanish gold coins.
Wow.
It had all kinds of silver chandeliers and stuff like that in there. He said he saw with a flashlight. Well, it turns out that he's asking me to be part of a deal that he's done messed up. He turned around, and the property he owns now is by a widow woman, and she won't let him own it. And so he thought, well, he could get some assistance by letting the deputy sheriff know there and the judge.
Oh, no.
And these are two guys, I told him, I said, you can't get my help because you've done authorized and told too much to two men that legally can carry a gun behind my back while I'm digging in there. And guess where we're going to go when the treasurer leaves? We're going to go in the same hole. I said, no, you might talk to me 10, 15 years down the road, and I'm not even sure that I want to go even then. But they'll be watching it from now on, that piece of property.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Keith, because, remember that old song by Kenny Rogers, The Gambler, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them and know when to walk away and know when to run? That absolutely applies when you get into the big-time treasure hunting. It absolutely applies. Don't you agree?
When they dug Highway 49 down here going out of Shreveport South, they came across two KGCs. One, a buddy of mine that lives in Louisiana, filmed as they were taking it out. And they loaded the stuff on military trucks and flew it out or drove it out. I think the first one they flew them out, and the second one they drove them out. And it's never been heard of or seen of since.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got stories like that I can tell you all night.
Yeah.
You don't know it, Keith, but I got so far into the KGC that I had 3 assassination attempts on my life. The last one, the bullet came through my window, the open window of my truck, and missed my neck by 2 inches and blew out the back glass.
Well, I told that guy I wasn't going to pay him if he shot you.
Yeah, hey. Well, I know some of the listeners don't believe that actually happened, but my wife can tell you it did, because I had the piece of a glass with a bullet hole in it I actually put tape on one side and held it together. It was all marbled like auto glass breaks. When it's impacted. But I had that for years. I think I finally threw it away. But my wife saw it, and the guy riding with me was cut by a little tiny piece of the bullet, not seriously, but it was a ricochet piece, and yeah.
Well, I didn't get too deep in that KGC for that very reason. There was just too much going on.
Well, see,
too many people watching and stuff. Anything that has to do with KGC, there's more people around you than you know sometimes.
Yeah, and again, the KGC were actually being controlled by a more secretive organization, and they are religious fanatics, and they will kill you in a heartbeat. And that's what I discovered almost to my, I guess the good Lord decided it wasn't my time to go. But, I quit.
That KGC goes back to the Knights Templars.
Well, that's the organization I'm talking about. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And
they way back there, and they always guarded their stuff. So.
Yes, they do. They did. But see, the Templars, what it comes down to was the KGC treasures were put away supposedly to finance the Second Civil War, and that's what the Knights thought they were doing. But those treasures were never meant to finance the Second Civil War. They were meant to become part of the thousands of treasure caches that the Knights Templars have all over the world.
Yeah.
And,
that's what I kind of figured on the reading I did. So first thing that came to my mind said, wouldn't this be just what the Knights Templars would want? Because they bury that stuff. They don't dig it up. They bury it. And it's all over the world.
Right. And the reason, people say, well, why are they burying all this treasure and not doing anything with it? Well, the answer is that they believe they're protecting a line of kings that came from a union between Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. And they believe that the last king in this line will be their version of the Savior of the world, and they're saving all this treasure for his use. And I know
as long as it's not Hillary Clinton, I'm all for
it. Did you say Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, Hillary Clinton is not right. That's where we'd be right now if it didn't work out the way we hope.
Well, it's interesting. One of the Knights caches we worked in Arkansas, it was at a place in the middle of millions of acres of paper company land, timber company land, and we found out that this one little place where this $10 million in bullion's buried, this one little geological feature, right in the middle of all these millions of acres of timber company land, we found out it was owned by Lady Bird Johnson, the wife of Lyndon Johnson, the president.
Huh. Yep.
What were the odds?
Makes a good book, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But you probably have to write as fiction because nobody would believe the truth about it.
Right.
I think Gypsy, it must be past Gypsy's bedtime. She's out, I think. Hey, Keith, I'm sorry, real quick, I wanted to jump in. Dorian's told us some stories about, how dangerous it can be looking for bigger caches and stuff. Have you ever ran into any issues or been followed or anything like that?
I've had some deals that make your hair on the back of your neck stand up. 2 or 3 times I was dead. I thought I was just pure dead. One right outside of Winsboro there, Dorian.
Really?
I don't know where the guy come from. I didn't pass any houses getting in there. There wasn't no houses down the road I was looking at. I just saw a wide spot in the road, and there was an old shack there with vines growing all over it. And I got out and started metal detecting around the shack to see how many old coins I find. I just stopped off, and I was in my wife's station wagon at the time, and here comes this truck down there, not where I was, but coming from the direction I was headed. And he comes running, rolling up there real quick, and he slams on the brake and skids right nearly up to me. Jumps out of the truck cab, reaches around behind the cab there, and pulls out 3 windings of barbed wire. He holds up there like he's going to slap me with it. I'm going, oh, man, well, I'm getting my shovel ready for this. Stopping with that shovel, and about that time, he reaches around behind his back, throws the wire on the hood of the truck, and pulls out a big old caliber pistol. And I was looking at the lead in it. He stuck it to my forehead. And he was just jumping around. I had the hammer back, and he was jumping around. And he's just hollering, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." And I won't say the names he called me. And I thought, man, this thing's about to go off. And I'm trying to figure out what to do here. I got to do something. And so I immediately just turned around in front of him and walked over to the car, put my detector and shovel in there, and I got in and drove off, waiting for the back window to pop at any time where he'd shoot at me. It was like he was high on something. And how did he know I was there? He had to have something out there around that shack or in that shack that he was protecting in some way that set off alarm that he would even know I'm there.
Oh,
so far
wow.
as the road, nothing. He just showed up, pulled a gun, stuck the barrel to my forehead. And I said, "Well, I don't think the owner wants me to hunt here. I don't even know if he's the owner." He didn't say he was. He just walked up and stuck a gun to me. So
Scary.
Yeah, it's scary. There's some weird people in the world.
Yeah.
See your light flash before you. Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know. I've had this talk with Dorian. I've had this talk with Gypsy. Gypsy gets up and down that river. I've been carrying a pistol with me most of my life, and I've never pulled it out. I've always gotten out of situations or calmed the situation. I would never pull it out unless it was but I don't understand you guys running around out in the middle of nowhere by yourselves without some kind of, something that might just save your life. I don't understand that.
Well, if you're in an area that where you're not known, like you're hunting in another state or whatever, if you're caught, and please understand, I'll give you an example of what happened to me. We have a 3,500 acre section of bean fields along the Ohio River that produce a lot of stuff for us. So I had a fellow on our archaeological team flew in so I could train him on how to use metal detectors. So I took him out to the bean fields, and it was hunting season, but the bean fields are so wide open, it's the only safe place to hunt around here that time of year. So we're hunting an old general store site because supposedly the guy that owned it said when it burned that he lost a cache of gold and silver coins in the fire. So we're kind of working that site, and up drives a big four-wheel drive Blazer or something with Kentucky Fish and Game on the side, and out jumps this fella probably about 30, fairly big officer, and he's armed to the teeth, and he's got one of these haircuts where the sides of his head's completely shaved and all this stuff, and this police pride haircut, I call it, and he's going to arrest us for trespassing. And I said, "No, you're not." He says, "What do you mean I'm not?" And I said, "Because we're not trespassing." I said, "I have permission from Mike Goodwin, that's the caretaker for this whole 3,500 acres, and there's his house right over there across that field. We can all go over there, and he can tell you." He says, "Well, Farmer Fred doesn't allow anybody to hunt these fields." I said, "Excuse me, Farmer Fred does, and I have permission." And I said, "If you want to make an issue out of it, you're going to come out on the losing end of this one." And he says, "I hear my radio. I've got to go." He jumped in and took off. But the attitude is what really got me. He's supposed to be out enforcing hunting regulations, not metal detecting regulations.
Right.
Well, he thought he had him a good bust, and he was going to do it, and until he realized, I'm on shaky ground here, because if these guys prove that they've got permission, I'm going to look like an idiot.
Here's how I look at it. I don't break the law. I'm legal. I've got car insurance. I don't drink and drive. I'm on property I'm allowed to have permission on. So if something weird like that would happen, I'd get arrested. Hey, I had permission anyhow, but I'll take my chances with the law than I will with some of these crazy people you're going to run into in your life. You know what I mean? I just had a friend recently out in the middle of a field, out in the middle of nowhere, and he hears gunshots off in the distance. I'm talking to him on the phone to see how he did, and he said, "Hey, I got to go." And he jumped in his truck. He got his wife in the truck and stuff, and they left. What they'd done is they'd went way back a lane. Well, I talked to him later, out of nowhere. They had walked up this creek that there's no trees on, and they'd come up over the hill over to where he was at. Now, they'd seen him off in a distance. They had to have. So what were they doing? Luckily he seen him and got out of there before they got too close. Now, that might have been nothing, but he was legal. He had permission to be there. You just never know what you're going to run into, even out, really far. You think you're alone and stuff. You told me the story about down there in Arkansas running into those brothers.
Yeah. We ran into the boys from Deliverance, is the way I like to put it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. A situation.
Three brothers whose family traded and forked, and they all had bad teeth. And they all looked alike, almost like triplets or something. Wow. And they all had shotguns broken over. And I was armed with my big Bowie that my special forces friend John Durham had custom made for me. And we're standing there talking about the weather, but the whole thing is about who can get their guns up and kill who before I can get that knife out of I have my left hand resting on the hilt of the knife on my left hip. And I noticed that these guys, their eyes keep going to that knife. And I realize that they don't know if I can get that knife out and get it in one of them before they can shoot me. Because what they want to do is kill me, take my detector and money and everything, and then throw my body in a quicksand pit back there in the swamp at Jenkins Ferry, Arkansas.
Yeah.
See, my regular hunting partner was Texas State Police at the time. Keith, did you ever know Paul Creech?
I think I've heard the name before. It must have been you. Tell me.
Yeah,
I don't know him. No.
I met Paul Garrett. Paul was a great guy, and he was a state police helicopter pilot, and he actually took me up in his helicopter on patrol. That was a real hoot. But yeah, Paul died about 2 years ago now with Alzheimer's. It was really sad. But Paul wrote a book called Eagle with a Badge. If you want to read about him, and it's all about his experiences as a state police helicopter pilot, and he had some. But Paul was my regular partner, and he got sick, and I had to hostarelli hunt like an idiot. I go back in the swamps by myself because when we went with Paul, he carried his gun right out on his hip because, no problems if the police stopped him because he's a fellow policeman. But I've got some friends who got caught on land carrying a gun, and the authorities said, forget the trespass charge. We're going after you on weapons charges. And that's a serious felony. And I just feel like that the odds are I could get into trouble that way quicker than the other. And so far, I've made 47 years without anybody I met killing me. But yeah, Keith and I can tell you that if you're going to treasure hunt and you're going to get into all these remote places, you're going to have some close calls.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, just being meaner. That's what defends you.
Yeah, I just always thought, well, if anybody comes after me, I've got my shovel and that I would swing at them. But when I lived in Galveston, I did a lot of night. I had a scuba knife that I carried with me because I could strap it either on my ankle or my arm. But I just bought another scuba knife not too long ago to start carrying with me.
Yeah,
I can see Gypsy. She'd be like reaching over and grabbing a bobcat, come to life all of a sudden. Be all scarred up and laying in the ditch bleeding. She's so easy going, and you just grab her the wrong way, and she's all over you.
Keith, I agree 100%. She's such a sweetheart that there's no doubt in my mind you get her to that point where she's got to fight, and you done opened up a can of worms that you ain't going to, you ain't want to mess with. I agree. When them Texas girls that are that sweet, they're that much meaner when they're mad. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, by the way, I'm married to a Texas girl. 7 years.
Dorian knows all about it. It's a miracle you're still alive. You must be a real good husband, Dorian.
Well, it took 4 for me to learn that.
It took what?
Huh?
It took what for you to learn that?
4.
Oh, 4. Well, Keith, I knew you were a collector, but I didn't know you collected flyers.
Well, my problem was mostly when I was down there in Panama diving on shipwrecks. They wanted to go. Well, you don't leave a woman with a credit card on land, and we stayed out in the boat all the time, in Panama. She'll be sold off the slave trade before you get back. I mean, it's just not a thing to do. And plus, if she goes on the boat, well, I told her, I said, dear, look, you'll be the only gal with a naked butt hanging over the rail peeing. You can't do that with 5 guys on board, like that. So and when I get home, I find all my stuff collected in one room, stuff like that. So it just doesn't last long. I used to have my summer funds going on diving trips for those old ships and stuff, and it was learned a lot. That was where Gypsy was talking about that encrusted thing that I told her a long time ago. Those were 1,600 sailing ship spikes, plank spikes. Spikes that outside there were 72% gold.
Oh, wow.
And I caught one of the president of our club's wife. She dug one up when I talked them all into, let's go up there and wait till the tide goes out. Well, it was 2:30 in the morning when the tide went out. And when you start walking on that clay and gummy stuff, it's just slick as axle grease. You'll fall straight on your face. Dorian knows it. And anyway, she digs up one of those sailing ship spikes. And I see her rear back. She's getting ready to throw that thing way out there in the water. I'm going, no. And they thought I was attacking his wife. I threw my detector and the shovel down trying to catch her before she threw that thing. And I said, don't throw that in the water like that. And that's the only thing that saved me from being tackled. And once I explained it to him, she said, well, I've already found 2 others, and I threw them out there.
No.
We're on a ship site, a sunken ship site, and she's throwing the outside plank spikes away. I go, yeah. Anyway, she has one. She's got one of them. I told her polish it up. The bronze makes it look pretty, that gold and stuff. It's a heavy.
Oh, that's incredible. Guys, we're getting to where we don't have a choice, but we're going to have to end the show soon. We've got 3 hours, and we're at 2 hours and 40 minutes. We can keep going. Just keep in mind we're getting close. I could sit here and listen. Here's the time I wish that I had the much more expensive plan because we just keep going until everybody fell asleep. I'm enjoying this.
Well, when I did my hunts, I'm a hunt master. That's what the manufacturers call me. If you want an honest hunt master, it's me. When I bury these hunts and stuff, we always have a big fire at night. We're sitting around, maybe sucking little suds and stuff, and we're talking. And they always just stop everybody, and I'm going, well, what's going on now? And they said, Keith needs to tell us some treasure stories. So I started telling them. The first thing I do is tell them a joke. It's so pathetic. It's just laughable, And they, oh man, we wanted a treasure story. I said that was a treasure story for me to remember that joke. That's a treasure within itself. Like that, So anyway, a lot of stuff is said around a campfire, and that's what I enjoyed going out with the older guys and that taught me and stuff, and sitting around that campfire and just keep your mouth shut and listen. There's so many people now that I've wrote this down several times on different emails and stuff that I send out that buy a detector, and within 2 weeks they throw that detector up in there in one hand and say I'm the best there ever was.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea.
Yeah.
Buy a Walmart detector or something, and I call those non-expensive paperweight. Or expensive paperweights, depending on what you pay for. But anyway, that's it's pathetic on some of the thinking. And really, if you look at it, you look at the generation differences and stuff. Some people are cut from that bread.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they look at things, and they're just master of everything in no time. Probably if I was their age again, I'd be master of everything too. But anyway,
Keith, I agree so much. I see these. I'm no expert. I've been at it over 20 years, and I'll tell you, I told Dorian the other day, I said, even a dummy like me, when you've done it so long, you've learned something, but guys like you and Dorian, I can sit here and learn 20 new things tonight. And I know that, and I always keep that in mind. I don't mind sharing the knowledge I know, but I know that there's people out there that know a lot more than I do. But, the one that gets me the most, I see a lot that just aggravates me on Facebook. Somebody will want to be, wanting to get into the hobby, and what detector should I get? And without knowing where that person is, what their budget is, what they plan on looking for, and all these equations that need, all these different questions that need to be asked to really narrow down. And you'll see people, the one that sticks out in my head the most was some guy said, buy an AT Pro, everything else is junk. And I have nothing against the AT Pro. Matter of fact, I think it's just an amazing detector, all-around detector. But, that AT Pro is not the best choice for every situation. You know that. I know that. And then you get people, buy a White's this, buy a MindLab that. And it's like, you guys, nobody here has stopped and asked the questions that need to be asked before you throw out what this guy should even be looking at. And it's I find social media has really changed people of how, some of these people that'll act like a complete jerk on the computer. If you saw them in the street, it's the person that would walk by you with their head down and scared to say anything. And it's frustrating. I find it frustrating, and the reason I find it frustrating, there's a lot of bad information out there for people getting into the hobby. There's a lot of bad videos. Keith, you found some valuable coins. Know that it's a horrible thing to wipe your silver and gold coins out in the field with your fingers. You're wiping, I wrote an article, wiping away the value. And that's absolutely the truth. And you get these, I couldn't tell you, it would be easier to tell you the few videos I found of guys finding silver coins where they didn't wipe them than the guys that do. Yeah. And these guys are people, whatever, men, women, are just giving out such bad information. There's a guy doing videos, comparing detectors, and he's judging them and, putting one down, putting one over the other, and he's using a test garden. Now, I have no problem with using a test garden to try a detector, and you got a new detector and you want to see, if you got to set it up a little bit to reach some deeper depths or whatever. My test garden is 3 coins. 3 coins, and I just want to know what kind, if it's a digital detector, what kind of depth I'm getting, what an analog detector might sound over one. It's 3 dimes. It's even just 3 dimes. But these guys that are putting down detectors from their test garden, it's ridiculous. That's not real world. We know that's not real world, but somebody new to the hobby doesn't know that.
Yeah, so you'd be amazed what I use for a test garden most of the time.
What's
it's
that?
No more than 2 or 3 coins, like you said, but they're not buried very deep. But I'll raise the coil up and I'll still hit them. Mm-hmm. I said, now that's what it looks like at 10 inches. It sounds like that. Actually, in the field, if you found something 10 inches deep, it's got a heck of a halo around it, and it'll even sound better than what I'm, representing or illustrating right there to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can do it for your own deal, but most of the customers I have, they don't walk away with it when you take them out there and show them on a test garden. This coin over here is 6 inches, that one's over there 8 inches, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just put a simple coin 2 inches, 3 inches deep, and show them by raising the coil up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same idea.
Mm-hmm. But I get so frustrated with that because, I'm not an expert and I'm still learning. But when I see these guys that are these people that just don't know what they're doing and they're trying to, they're influencing the people in the hobby, it's really frustrating. And when you sit there and just watch them make mistake after mistake and you think, people are watching this and, deciding whether to buy a detector based on this person that doesn't know what they're doing. So I find that frustrating. I do.
Well, if you sit to the side and watch a hunt that you're putting on, watch the people participating out there, you see just one travesty of the hobby after another sometimes. The way they dig holes, the way they pattern, if they pattern at all, you just see all kinds of failures of bushwhacking. That's where you swing your coil up off the ground on both sides. I don't know what you're supposed to be doing there, but and they never heard of rotating their wrist instead of slinging it from side to side like you try to swing a bat. So I've created this little clinic that I do a couple of times a year with my club, and we go out and we just go to one of the city parks, and we get in the city park. Usually get a pavilion so we can have a hot dog dinner and all that stuff out there. Well, we do what I call an outside instruction clinic. And I bring a Y plug so I can plug into each one of their detectors with my headphones.
Oh, nice.
Listen to the same signal. And I tell them, why do you want to dig that signal? And I tell them, go over it again, listen to it. And I tell them, now listen, can you not tell it's changing tones too fast and it's up and down the scale on the meter? It's telling you that it's a piece of garbage and you don't want to dig it, So, I don't know how many of them told me that's really improved it, and I need to schedule another one pretty soon, probably in August, and have another one for the club because we got a pretty good turnover in the club. So they need to teach them, and a lot of them are younger people. Some of them are even children, and they don't have the slightest idea how to adjust their detector or what they're doing. And so this just helps them get a better grip and makes them a better hunter.
Speaking of don't know how to adjust it, it amazes me, even some of these accomplished detectors, how few people in the hobby really understand detectors and what some of the simplest settings that most detectors share that they don't understand how that affects their detector. I can't talk electronics or how it works in theory and this and that. I mean, I get the gist of it, but I can't talk educated on that. But I know I can pick up just about anything, any detector there is, and I can learn it quick because I understand the most basic settings. I know guys that have had detectors, the same detector. I know a guy that's had the same detector for 10 years, and he runs it one way, and he runs it the same way I set it up for him 10 years ago. And if he ran into different ground or if he runs into different situations, he's just having a bad day because he doesn't know how to adjust that detector for those different situations.
Well, he knows that you set it, but he doesn't know what the knob was for.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. And if he knew what it's for and how it works, that would be the big difference.
Absolutely.
And most people that buy a detector, they're told by the book, kind of what it's for, but not really in depth. And so, they are. They're still lost too. But you get somebody like me that works on the things, actually knows what the signal's doing when you change this. It helps a whole lot. Matter of fact, I taught a seminar one time in Fort Worth. It was at the Police and Fire Academy in Fort Worth, and the guy that works there at the academy was filming me. from 3 different directions, so he would have me on tape and stuff, and it was 6 hours long.
Wow.
I explained everything that ever came out on a metal detector and what it did and what it was significant for, or was it a piece of garbage they just hung on it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And of every different kind of detector out there. And it took 6 hours. I was having to take breaks every 25 minutes and then called back. I wouldn't have got, but I had 65 people at that.
Wow.
And that was the first one I ever done seminar that I charged money for. And I instantly realized I need to give up metal detecting. I can make more money doing it.
That's awesome.
Anyway, I just, it's just some way to help them. That's the big thing. I can't get out there and hunt like I used to as much. But, and with the back problem surgeries I've had and stuff, eliminated my diving and stuff like that I used to do too. Actually, there's no diving over here in East Texas. All the lakes are so bad that you can sit 1 foot under the water and you can't see your hand on your face mask.
Yeah.
So it's you just have to go by feel and you don't know where you're coming up at. And so there's different things. I've used hookers, I've used dredges, I've used all kinds of stuff. But it's, I always look for a shortcut. And one time Charles Garrett asked me about that. He saw me walking down the hallway there in the factory, and Charles hollered at me, and he was sitting in the break room. And that was Charles. Where is he like that? And I found him in the break room with both his engineers. He said, we're sitting here discussing what should be on the next future detector. And he said, you're a man out in the field. We want to hear from you. What do you want on the next detector? And I said, well, I can tell you what I want. What I want is that little guy on the end of my coil with a shovel that digs for me. And they just cracked up. I mean, they like fell out of the chairs. They were laughing so hard. I said, yeah, I don't want somebody like that on. Can you add those with every detector you sell or what? Like that. They just cracked up.
That's funny.
Hey, I got an idea, guys. I know how we can make for.
We're losing you, Dorian. I don't. You went completely dead. You there?
Yeah.
You're getting real bad reception. Yeah, real bad reception.
Okay.
There. You're sounding pretty good.
All righty. I'm moving around trying to get a better signal here on my Wi-Fi. Can you hear me now?
Sound good right now.
Okay.
You thought about making a commercial with that line? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
What we need to do is invent a drone with a little backhoe on it.
Yeah.
And just as soon as you get a signal, you call it in. And it drops down and digs the target out for you.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah, I'm with Keith. When they invent something like that, I'm in. I need the exercise. I'm still young enough. I don't have major issues, and I just need the exercise. So I don't complain too much. But yeah, there should be something for them old guys out there that struggle. Been doing it all them years. Yeah, we got 7 minutes, and we're gonna have to wrap up, or it's gonna shut us down. Keith, we'll have to get you back. We could just do this over and over. I love having you on, you and Dorian, and I want to work on getting some more of you guys on with all this knowledge and stories. And I'll tell you two have been some of the best for sure, having on the podcast.
Listen, I would like to say one thing before we get off. I don't know how many people are still listening to us, but the kids camp out there, some brave enough to walk off with the foreign coins out there last year. 5-gallon bucket full of foreign coins. And that's what we use to keep the camp going, so all through the summer they can do this extra entertainment with the metal detectors by taking them down nature trails and throwing out coins and letting the kids, stuff like that. So we've been trying to build up more foreign coins. Somebody likes to steal from kids, I guess. But anyway,
that's horrible.
We're going to lock them up this time, a better place. But anybody that has foreign coins that wouldn't mind donating it to the handicapped children, we please ask them to consider it. They can get hold of me and ship it directly to me, and I'll take it to the camp. That'll be fine. But if you have foreign coins, and a lot of people just go buy them by the pound. They're not worth anything really.
Right. And
the children don't know that, but still they feel like they found the treasure, and that's the point. And so, any help that we can get out of that'd be great. It took us years to build that 5-gallon bucket up, and it's going to take us years to replace it, I'm afraid, unless we get more people that's interested in helping us out.
Yeah. To any of the listeners, if you got some foreign coins or you'd like to go buy some and send them, please do that. I know I don't have any. I know a couple guys that'll buy them bulk, and I'm going to talk to them. Matter of fact, as soon as we get off here, I will be messaging one of the guys. Please help out. That's a great cause. Absolutely great cause. Again, that's brokendetector.com. I believe, Keith, your number's on the website, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
correct?
It is.
He's
my
got
email, my number, and my address.
Get a hold of Keith and help those kids out. Please help those kids out. That's a great thing Keith and that team's doing, and if they need help, we need to help them out any way we can.
Well, I appreciate it. And the kids, if you saw the smile on their face on the first coin they dug, Gypsy can tell you it's worth every bit of it, whatever you have to go through to do it.
Yeah. When you were, I'll be honest with you, Keith.
Excuse me. Keith?
Yeah.
Could you use something like American pennies too?
No, here's the deal. The camp won't let the kids have any American coins because they run over to the counselor's lounge and they feed the Coke machine. And they're only allowed to drink what they give them to drink on the property: Kool-Aid, tea, coffee, punch, stuff like that. They're not allowed to drink any carbonate. And so the counselors are not that loyal, so they have their own Coke machines in their lounges on the property. And so, the first year that we had it out there, we buried silver dimes. Well, we heard a bunch after that. I had a handful of foreign coins, put those out, and the kids got excited digging coins from different countries. Care less about that dime. They didn't know it was silver, but they fed Coke machines with them. I bet that guy that emptied the money on that Coke machine was tickled to death.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great, guys. We got to wrap it up right now. We're gonna be just shut off. So, Keith, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, we're gonna have to do another show soon, Dorian, with him on, because great information, and we'll get Dorian. Of course, Dorian, again, he's going to be regular somewhat. We're going to get him on, and we've been talking about some possibilities and things, and I'm looking forward to that, and I'm sure that our listeners will as well. All right, guys, good night, and thank you so much. Hey,
Thank
Keith,
you,
I'm gonna get a hold of you soon about one of those 6,000s. I'm gonna talk to you about one of those.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody.
I'll be in touch with you real quick too, Keith.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.